Hi, everyone. We are back, and I am so pleased to introduce to you a woman that spoke at our annual conference last year and has joined us again. So I feel really honored that she's wanting to work with us so much. Her clients call her gentle and calm. They say working with Lynn is like being with a friend who cares. Many clients says she's given them their life back. Lynn Thompson is a talented healer and hypnotherapist and the owner of Heartfire Healing, a 12-year-old company. So she's been doing this for quite a long time. Lynn is a sought after speaker, author, and author of the Amazon bestseller, You Are Not Your Diagnosis. Lynn helps women with chronic health symptoms have more energy so they have peace of mind, live a meaningful life, and are independent. Lynn has tremendous understanding and compassion for her clients because she has struggled with life-changing health crisis too. She's past I'm having a real problem this morning, and I'm so glad this is getting edited out. She is passionate about sharing the message that our bodies can heal from serious health issues when we have the right support. Let's welcome Lynn Thompson.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to talk to you today, and we're going to be talking about how your subconscious mind is sabotaging your ability to change your habits. I think this is such an important topic, and I think it's a great one to start the year off with because even if you're not a New Year's resolution person, a lot of people start the year with kind of intentions to do better, make changes, and I want to help set you up for success. So that's why I'm really excited to share about this topic. So let me give you just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover, and then I want to just roll right into the content. So in our time together, we're going to cover three key areas. We're going to talk about why your subconscious mind is actually viewing change as dangerous and how this kind of sabotages your habits when you try to make change. We're going to talk, secondly, about how often self sabotage is like this sneaky thing and we do it without even realizing it. So, I'm going to teach you and talk about one way that we self sabotage before we even start. And then lastly, we're going to talk about triggers because triggers are a huge thing to talk about when we're trying to make change. And often it's something we don't really pay attention to. So let's dive into this topic. But before we do too, I want to share that at the end, be excited because I'm going to guide you through one of the most powerful tools that I know to work with the subconscious mind, and that is hypnosis. So, don't be nervous about it. I'm going to give you a little more information if you're new to hypnosis before we get into it at the end. But I'm going to teach you how it really can help your subconscious work for you and how change can be a lot easier when we get the subconscious mind on board. So, if you've read my bio or you've heard the intro, you know that I work a lot with women with chronic health conditions. So, I just want to speak a little bit to why do we need to talk about habits? Because this might seem like, a little bit off topic for me. And I really think habits are important because habits are what set us up for success or failure in terms of our health. So, first, before we even get there, let's just say, what is a habit? So, a habit is something that we do kind of in an automated way. So, we have so many different habits that we don't even really think about, like brushing our teeth after we eat breakfast, like, getting up at a certain time in the morning and you do a certain thing right after you get out of bed and you don't even think about it. So habits are just really automated things that we do. And it's great in one sense, because if we had to think consciously of every single thing that we need to do in a day, our poor little brains would be way overwhelmed. So habits actually can, take the load off of our conscious mind because they're things that we can have like programs in our brain to do. But the problem is of course, when we get stuck in habits that don't really serve our health, habits that sabotage our well-being. So perhaps maybe like a habit of eating too much sugar, spending time sitting on the couch when you know it would be better for you to go for a walk, not doing a practice like maybe meditation that you know benefits your mental well-being. So, habits are a double-edged sword. Habits can contribute to our health if we have great habits, or habits can contribute to sickness. So, we really need to be mindful of what habits we have. And that's kind of a topic for a different day, but you could always kind of do an inventory of what kind of habits do I think I have, and then changing the ones that don't really serve us. So what I want to help you with today is really thinking about how can you change the habits that you know don't serve you. So let's just dive into this topic now. So the first thing I want to share is, I know if you're here and you're watching my talk, you probably really want to make some sort of change in your life to improve your health. And we're not going to talk about like why certain things are important in terms of habits and behaviors, because you probably have already heard it before. So we're not going to talk about why, making healthy eating choices is important, why exercising regularly is important, why self-care is important. Like you've heard those things probably till your eyes roll back into your head, because those are commonly talked about things. But the problem is that, it's hard to make those changes. And again, this is where we're going to dive in. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to guide you through like a little bit of tell me if this sounds familiar in your mind. So say you tell yourself that on Monday next week that you're going to cut down on how much sugar you're eating. Or maybe you say, I'm going to start a practice of walking every day for 20 minutes, or I'm going to meditate every day for 15 minutes. So you say to yourself, okay, starting on this date, I'm going to make some sort of a change. And then maybe that day rolls around and you start that new behavior. You cut back your sugar, you exercise regularly for a few days, or if you're lucky, maybe even make it to a few weeks. But then you start to find yourself skipping a day, skipping a few days. Maybe you forget here and there. Maybe life just feels busy and overwhelming. And so it can start to feel like a struggle to be consistent with this new behavior, this new habit that you want. And then you start thinking to yourself, this is what always happens. I always seem to fall into this pattern of, going back to eating sugar, not exercising regularly, whatever it is. And then the feelings start to flow, right? You start to feel disappointed in yourself. You start to feel frustrated because it seems really hard. And you're like, why does it have to be so hard to change? And then you might start getting to that place of like, I feel like I should just give up because I never seem to be successful anyway. Like I always try to change, but I don't seem to succeed. So, you tell yourself, why bother? I never succeed. Now, there are many reasons why we fail to be consistent, but I really want to talk about the biggest one here, and that is that your brain actually views change as a bad thing. I'm going to say that one more time because it's really important. Your brain views change as a bad thing. Now, you might be going, okay, that doesn't really make sense. So I want to dive into what does that mean? So anything that is unknown or unfamiliar, your subconscious mind actually will say no to. It says, no, don't like it, don't want to do it. And let's just pause here for a second and talk about how much of the time your subconscious mind is in charge. It's in charge 95% of the time. 95% of the time, you're running things in these programs that happen in your subconscious mind. So, we all like to think we're conscious beings. We make choices in our daily lives. We can change. And yes, we can, but on a daily basis, only 5% of the things are happening from the level of the conscious choice. 95% of things are just these old programs that run in the subconscious mind. So now that we've got that kind of foundation laid, why the heck does the subconscious see change as a bad thing, right? Because it's actually conditioned to see change as unsafe. Okay, again, going, I don't really get that, right? So let's just talk about what safety means to your brain. Safety to your brain means that it just knows what's coming next. And safety for, centuries kept us alive when, we didn't live in houses and we didn't have things to protect us from predators. Like if you could predict that, a tiger was going to come over the horizon and try to eat you in a certain scenario, then that was great because your brain could try to keep you safe from that. So it's the same thing that happens in our modern brains, but of course it doesn't really make sense when you say, but I'm trying to like cut back on sugar because I know sugar's bad for me, or I'm trying to walk every day because I know exercise benefits my health. What do I do? My subconscious is saying these things are bad. Yeah, your subconscious actually views your current relationship with your habits and your health related habits as what's safe, even if those things you consciously know are not good for you. So when you try to change, then what happens is your brain gets really uncomfortable and it tries to pull you back into the old habit. So, bottom line here is what I'm saying is when you commit to making a new habit, a new behavior, your mind is actually what's sabotaging you to go back into your old patterns. Think of those patterns as like well-worn ruts on a road, and your brain tries to pull you back into them because it sees those things as the safe way to do things. And this is so frustrating, right? Because you're trying to make change because you consciously know this is a good thing to make this change. And what you really want is for change to feel simpler and easier and not like you're in this unconscious battle with your mind. So we're going to talk more about, how can you start to change the subconscious mind in a little bit. But let's dive into kind of the second thing that I really want to talk about, which is how we often sabotage ourselves before we even start to make change. And this is so sneaky. When I was writing about this and thinking about it, it was even just a little aha in my own brain that, we often sabotage ourselves before we even try to change. So just think about how many times when you've committed to change, do you pick a date in the future? This doesn't have to be, that I pick January 1, but, a lot of times we say like, oh, I'll start that on Monday. I'll start that next week. I'll start that next month. And instead of just saying, I'll start today. And the problem here is that when that date rolls around, oftentimes we forget, we're busy, we say this isn't a good time, and we put things off. So it's easy to just kind of keep putting things off and off and off into the future. Really, the best thing, if we don't want to sabotage ourselves when we want to change, is just to say, I'll start today. So it doesn't matter if you say, today, January 4th at 10 a.m., I'm going to start this new habit. There's no magic date. There's no, it has to be the beginning of a week, the beginning of a month. It just pick a date and start, right? So when we start our efforts by putting things off into the future, we're actually laying the groundwork for failure for the change. I want to say that one more time because I think it's a really key point. When we start our efforts to change by putting things off into the future, we're actually setting ourselves up with the groundwork to fail in the future. It's better to just start now, right? We're programming ourselves to fail. Do you really want to program yourself to fail? No, I don't think you do, but you probably don't realize that putting things off into the future is actually doing just that. It's self-sabotage without really even knowing it. And then what happens in our minds and in our brains when we start to, fail again, when we don't follow through, is it changes how we see ourselves. So, all of these times when we put things off, we push things back, we say, I'll start again, tomorrow, I'll start on Monday. We start to see ourselves as someone who lacks follow through, somebody who's not committed. Sometimes even people will label themselves harshly as a failure, right? And that starts to become part of your identity, really. When you start to see yourself as somebody who's not committed, that's how you see yourself. And then you tend to actually further behaviors that will confirm that as your identity. So, if you're not a committed person, you probably will, again, keep trying to make change and never follow through. And it just further confirms I'm not a committed person. So a lot of what I talk about with people too, when we're trying to make change, is we actually have to change our identity to successfully make change. We have to become the person who is kind of at that end destination that we want. We have to be a committed person usually to make change. That's one key identity factor, but there's others that can be helpful. So, I want to share what we really want, again, is for change to be easy, for it to be easy to be the person who follows through in successfully changing our habits, and not, again, to feel like a failure, to feel like you self sabotage. But you have to be aware of these things. And oftentimes we just jump into change. Most times we don't consciously plan much out. We just say, oh, on Monday, I'm going to stop doing that. And then you don't think much more about it other than, that's what I'm going to do. So the final area I really want to highlight here is why it can be hard to change habits and behaviors is because we all have triggers that make us default back into our old patterns, right? Everyone has triggers, like no matter how much work you've done on yourself, I still don't know many people who don't get triggered at times. So let's again use another example, another story here. Say, for example, you've been really doing well with walking every day for the past week. And so you've been really consistent every day at the set time that you're going to walk, whether it's your lunch break, after work, whatever it is, you walk every day. And then you have a bad day. Maybe you get in a fight with your spouse. Maybe your child has a tantrum. Maybe your boss is not being very nice that day and you're triggered. And so, what happens often is that you might find yourself, instead of walking, sitting on the couch, watching your favorite show on TV, eating cookies, and just saying to yourself, man, I just had such a bad day, right? And sometimes you don't even realize that you're not doing that activity of the daily walk. And sometimes you justify, like, I've had a bad day. I really don't want to walk today. I'll just skip today because how many times do we use this phrase, right? I deserve a break, which sometimes we do, but it also can be a way of getting ourselves out of something that would benefit us. Like maybe that walk would actually help you. So, this is exactly how your triggers sabotage your success, right? And sometimes, again, we're conscious that we're triggered and we're choosing not to do what we're supposed to. And sometimes we're just sitting there, binge watching Netflix with a bag of cookies. And the problem too is then when we start to break that 7 day streak of every day I walked, I walked like I said I was going to, it starts to become easier. You may have noticed this, it becomes easier to justify skipping another day. Oh, let's just get back to it next week, right? Yesterday wasn't so great. I'll start again Monday. And that kind of loops back into what we talked about in my second point, right? We again kind of set things up to, I'll start again in the future. So, what I want to share here is when we want to change, we really have to be aware and we have to figure out what our triggers are and address them with strategies that help us stay committed to what we're trying to do and stay on track even when we get triggered. Because let's face it, triggers are going to happen. Hello, you're a human, you're going to have triggers. I have triggers. We all have triggers. Some people have more triggers, some people have worked through things, but there are things that are going to push you back into your old patterns. So you really need to be aware of what your triggers are and then have other ways that when you get triggered, you can keep yourself back on track instead of just defaulting into the old pattern or whatever gives you comfort or like whatever you do when you're triggered. So I know what you really want is to be successful in making change and not have your triggers sabotage you without you realizing it, or sometimes you do know that you're triggered and you're justifying it. But again, when we start to make changes, we don't often sit there and think about, well, what might trigger me back into my old behaviors? And this is a key piece of the formula. We have to think about it. In order to be successful in changing, we have to get our brain and our subconscious mind on board with that change. And we have to know what our triggers are and who we need to be in order to make the changes. So, the problem now, I want to shift into talking about what becomes difficult about trying to change the subconscious mind here. It's very difficult to change your subconscious mind from the conscious mind. It's kind of like I view the two as the subconscious is kind of like the basement and the conscious mind sits above it. Well, in this particular analogy, it's very hard to kind of make changes in the basement from that perspective of that ground floor. So I think a lot of times when people try to make changes, they use things like affirmations, and positive statements to try and change and reinforce what we do want. So, the problem, though, I think affirmations can be valuable and useful, but the problem is often that these affirmations, our subconscious mind doesn't actually believe them. So you can run around saying, I'm committed until you're blue in the face. But if your subconscious mind doesn't really buy into it, you're going to probably get some kickback from your mind. It's not going to accept this. So, again, one more example. Let's say you want to be committed to exercising. So, you start saying that mantra daily. I'm committed to exercising. I exercise daily, whatever it is. And you say it over and over and over. But if your subconscious mind doesn't identify you as a person who is committed to exercise, it's just going to ignore or dismiss that affirmation or that mantra. Then you're just going to fall back into, nope, I'm not a person who's committed to exercise. Maybe I'm a person who is normally committed to sitting on the couch watching TV after dinner. So, how do we change then, right? Like, how do we change the subconscious mind? This is actually where the tool of subconscious reprogramming comes in. And one of the most powerful and easy and effective ways that I know to help work with the subconscious mind and reprogram it is through hypnosis. Because hypnosis allows us to actually access your subconscious mind and talk to it directly. So, when we use hypnosis, we actually take you through a series of exercises to help you relax. And you're going to get to experience that here in just a few minutes when we do a little bit of hypnosis together. And as the conscious mind relaxes and as the body relaxes, we can start to talk to your subconscious mind and we can start to tell it what we do want. So we can program it so that it's like, I am a person who's committed to exercise, or I am a person who's committed to eating healthy. And the more that repetition happens when you use hypnosis, because when I work with people with hypnosis, we listen to it daily. You have an audio that you repeat, so your subconscious mind keeps getting this message over and over again. One time is usually not enough. It helps to create the identity that you want. It helps to create new beliefs about yourself as, somebody who is successful at making change. We can reprogram kind of anything that gets in the way, anything that you say, oh, it's too hard. I was talking to somebody yesterday and it was like she had this whole list of reasons why, it's hard to lose weight. It's hard because it takes too much time. I've not been successful before. I'm too old. We can change that. We can reprogram it in your subconscious mind. So, in a few moments, we're actually going to shift into experiencing hypnosis because I think it's powerful for you to have this experience and I want you to know what it is. And I'm going to give you a little more explanation before we do that. But the thing is that I want to emphasize here, change doesn't really have to be hard. Changing your habits, changing what you're doing to support your health, it doesn't have to be hard. You just need the right tools. And I really believe that, subconscious reprogramming in the form of hypnosis is one of the most powerful tools to help you do that. So before we dive into the hypnosis, I just want to allay any anxiety that anyone might be feeling because I hear these things all the time. So I just want to share a little bit more about what hypnosis is, what hypnosis is not. First of all, hypnosis is not like what you've seen on a TV or movie show. You're not going to be asked to do anything silly. That's stage hypnosis. And, so people barking like a dog, clucking like a chicken, that can happen, in a stage format of hypnosis, but the hypnosis that I'm using is really designed to help you change. So there's really no benefit to any of those ridiculous things that you would be asked to do in that situation. I would never ask you to do those things in hypnosis. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through some simple relaxation exercises, as I mentioned, that help address the mind and the body and allow us to really talk to your subconscious mind. So hypnosis really, I like to say, is a focused state of awareness. It's a lot like meditation. So when you experience this, you might say this feels a little bit like guided meditation, but the focus is different. So, meditation is a different focus. In this particular way of working, we really want to access your subconscious mind and talk to it and reprogram it. So A couple other quick things. You don't need to worry about being in control, losing control, because at any time, if you don't like what's happening, if you're not enjoying the hypnosis, you can open your eyes. You never lose control. You can come out at any moment if it's not working for you. So I hope that kind of allays any nervousness anyone might have about hypnosis. And I hope that you're game to just give it a little bit of a try. So I'd love for you to just kind of shift around a little bit wherever you're sitting. If you want to transition and just like be lying down when you're watching this is fine too. You just want to be comfortable. And I'm going to guide you into the hypnosis. We'll spend about maybe 15 minutes in this process. So settling in, closing your eyes, and beginning by taking a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, just let go of any tightness in your body. Taking another nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, feel your body really letting go. Notice if there are any areas of your body that feel tight or tense. And with every breath out, feel the tension leaving that part of your body. Feel yourself letting go, your body becoming loose, limp, and heavy. Now just continue breathing and notice your breath, the way it feels, and how your breath is soft and easy, and how gentle each breath has become, smooth, natural, and easy. And notice how each breath becomes more peaceful and relaxing. Now I want you to give relaxation a color. Let the color move in and out of your lungs with every breath. Feel that soothing color as you breathe in. Let the color move throughout your body, moving all the way into your body. And everywhere that color goes, it releases tension and tightness. It relieves any discomfort you may be feeling. It creates a deep sense of calm in every cell of your body. And as I speak, let the sound of my voice relax you even deeper. And any sounds you hear, any sounds at all, will continue to relax you even deeper. Now imagine yourself going into a warm, comfortable, safe place. A place where it's safe to just let your body be. It's okay to lose touch. Just feel yourself floating. Allow yourself to drift and let your body become even lighter. And float and drift. And as you drift, dream, float, and fly. Allow your body to become so light that you feel there is no discomfort, only calm and lightness and floating and drifting. And you can float and drift into colors towards the sunlight or towards those calm, soothing, and peaceful colors. Now, as you are floating and drifting and so relaxed, you can begin to notice a wonderful sensation, a tingly sensation that starts in the hands and feet and moves through your entire body. It seems that you are just your thoughts, just your energies. You are connected to your higher self, the true you, the real you, the authentic you. You are in touch with who you really are, with your real self, more in touch than ever before. Just feel yourself losing touch and at the same time getting in touch with who you really are. Now, every time I say the word deeper, you will find yourself drifting deeper and deeper down, becoming twice as relaxed as you were before. Twice as relaxed as you were before whenever I say the word deeper. Just allow yourself to drift into this warm and comfortable, safe place where you are connected to your true self, drifting deeper and deeper down, now deeper, letting go, down deeper. Let the sound of my voice find that place in your mind. You are worthy of creating habits in your life that serve your health and well-being. Healthy and happy people from all walks of life have at least one main thing in common. They are 100% committed to supporting their body in being as healthy as possible. What does it mean to be 100% committed to your health? What does it mean to be 100% committed to your new habit? To be 100% committed to your new habit means you stick with something until you reach your goal. No excuses. It means not giving in or giving up. Being committed is a mindset. With a committed mindset, you create your habits that lead to your ideal health. There's a reason why you want this habit in your life, and I want you to think about your why. In the past, you may have allowed yourself to give up and quit when life felt challenging. Those times when you have just avoided doing what your higher self was telling you to do, or you threw in the towel or became complacent, got lazy, or decided to put it off. Whatever that behavior was that you can really admit to yourself now from a place of integrity, that really shows you how you have been preventing true success from happening until now. Today, you are setting new standards for yourself. You are committed to your health, which means you make your new habit a reality. Not only are you committed, you are motivated. You are changing your thoughts around your new habit at the deepest level of your mind, heart, and spirit right now. To be committed and motivated, let's really look at your why. Is your why for creating your new habit in alignment with the health outcome that you want? I want you to visualize your ideal health outcome now. Take a moment to really feel that in your heart. And now I want you to lock this in. Lock in these feelings right now of being committed and motivated. And in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And when I get to 3, I want you to take a deep breath and breathe in these powerful feelings. 1, 2, 3. Breathe it in and feel the commitment and motivation. Hold it. Feel the energy. Good. And exhale. And once again, 1, 2, 3. Breathe in and feel the commitment and motivation. Hold it. Feel the energy, allowing the energy to permeate every cell of your being. And exhale. You have the power to create your habit. You have the energy to achieve your goals. You have the motivation and determination and willingness to succeed. And once again, 1, 2, 3, breathe in and feel the commitment and motivation taking over every cell of your body, feeling the energy. And as you exhale, giving yourself everything that you need to make sure that you get up and you do what it takes to be committed and motivated with your new habit. Locking in this powerful feeling into your body. Being 100% committed means that if you don't succeed, that you keep picking yourself back up and recommitting to your habit. There is no such thing as failure, only feedback and wisdom. You simply may need to change your approach, create a new plan. You are committed and motivated to doing whatever it takes to keep you practicing your new habit. You will succeed at embodying this habit because you are 100% committed and motivated to do what you say and do. You just do whatever it takes. You are your word. You speak your word. And I want you to take a moment now to see your new habit in your mind. We're going to step into your amazing and incredible future. Picturing whatever your habit is, take a moment and see it. See it in full color. Envision what you are doing. Now imagine, as you're doing this new habit, what are you feeling? Excited, grateful, thankful, energized? Would you feel proud that you have created this habit? I want you to feel the feelings now. Enjoy this moment. See yourself thriving. See your why. You get to experience the joy and the happiness and the rewards of being committed and determined in your life because you did what it took. You had the commitment and the motivation. You changed your life and your health. You made your dream come true. You allowed yourself to be successful with this new habit. You get to experience that now. Take this time to really understand the joy of having achieved this level of success, that you did have the level of commitment and motivation needed to achieve this new habit. You are worthy and deserving of everything you want in your life. You are worthy of being happy and healthy. You are worthy of having inner peace, freedom, and well-being. You are worthy of being loved by you. You are worthy of being loved by the universe. You are worthy of being happy, and you're so happy. Moving beyond what you thought was possible. It feels good to be consistent, to have discipline and drive. You are creating your reality. Every moment of the day, you're focused, determined, and you're willing to continue taking steps towards achieving what it is that you really want to achieve. And every day that you hear this hypnosis, you become 10 times more motivated, 10 times more invigorated, 10 times more energetic than the day before. You are unstoppable. You are 100% committed to your habit. You always see things through. Compliment yourself for a job well done. Here you are experiencing it right now. The changing is happening right now, and you are fully invested in your health and your new habit. You feel so empowered. Nothing is impossible. You have discovered one of the universal laws is commitment, and you are 100% committed to your new habit. You are creating your new habits with enthusiasm. You understand your habits lead you towards your dreams and your goals. You like being committed and motivated, and you feel so proud of yourself for the work you've done today. And as you revel in these feelings, hear these words and these new beliefs as they are deeply embedded. I am 100% committed to me. I am 100% committed to my habit. I am 100% committed to my dreams and my goals. I am 100% committed to my health. I am unstoppable. I pride myself on being 100% committed and motivated. Now that you are 100% committed, you can achieve anything. In fact, you can be committed to even more empowering habits. You know what you want and how to get it. You are focused and committed, and it feels good to have this passion back in your life. You've seen yourself achieving this habit. You feel free. You feel healthy. And just take a moment here to repeat in your mind, I am 100% committed and motivated to this habit that supports my health. And so it is. And the more you listen to this audio, the more committed and motivated you are. These new beliefs have already become a part of your actions, behaviors, and your personality from this moment forward. And in a moment, I'm going to count up from 1 to 3. And when I get to 3, you'll be fully awake and alert with your eyes open and ready to go about your day. 1, bringing your awareness back into the room. 2, wiggling your fingers and toes. 3, eyes open now, feeling alert and wonderful and fully committed to your health. So, as you come back from the hypnosis, just take a moment to transition. I'll give you a moment to just kind of open your eyes and reorient. And I hope that you really enjoyed this taste of hypnosis and that you can start to understand how this relaxing and powerful experience allows us to actually talk to your subconscious mind and align your subconscious mind with the changes that you want to make. So again, as I mentioned, hypnosis isn't really just a one and done thing. We repeat the use of these different audios because it helps to actually reinforce and reprogram the mind. So I just want to share with you a couple opportunities if you want to take this a little bit deeper. So tomorrow, actually on Thursday, January 5th, I am starting, I am committed to my health challenge, where I'm going to support you in kind of applying this for the next week. So we'll be using a hypnosis audio for a week, which again isn't even really the full length, but it'd give you a more consistent taste. And I'm going to also teach 2 mini classes, and we're going to have like a private Facebook group and prizes that you can win. So if you're interested, there's the link below me to check it out and sign up. It's $11 to join. So it's just a small investment in committing to yourself. That's part of the investment, is just to help you be committed, because a lot of times free things we don't follow through on. So sign up for that. And if this really spoke to you, if everything that I really shared today about the subconscious mind and how all of this works, how we sabotage ourselves and how we can actually unsabotage ourselves, if this speaks to you, I'm launching actually a 8-week group program next week that starts on Thursday, January 12th. And it is 8 weeks to a healthier you. So I'm going to teach you all the tools to be able to successfully change habits in your life. And the awesome thing is you will be able to do this on repeat. So there's also going to be a link below me, if we can change it to the other link for the group program. And that program is 8 weeks to a healthier you starting next week. You'll have the tools, you can repeat it. And if you have questions about that, when you look at that on my website, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat with you about if it's the right fit for you or not before you sign up. So I hope you'll check both of those resources out. And if neither of them really feel right to you, that's totally fine. But I hope that you gained something from my sharing today about what happens in our subconscious mind and why you might find yourself struggling to change, and how maybe you can have some insights into being more successful in making change in your life, because it's important to be able to change, right?
I'm having so many problems this morning. Oh, Lynn, thank you so much. So I've heard you say this before, but I made a note of it this time, of that your brain views change as a bad thing.
Yes.
And, sometimes we're really excited about change, and we're really, um, I know I have been. I'm like, oh, new year, new changes. I'm so excited. I'm gonna get this done. And then you say, if we put things off, you know, then then we're setting ourselves up to fail. Why not just do it now? And I've always been a do it now type of person. I've never been a wait to do things person. But when you said that, it really made me think, oh God, yeah, every time I put something off to well, first of all, I forget about it. If I put it off, I kind of forget about it and I
Very common.
but I was thinking, gosh, you're right. So that is one of the factors in why resolutions don't work, right? Because we're thinking in December about all those changes that we need to make on January 1st and all those resolutions. I'm gonna lose 10 pounds. I'm gonna walk every day. I'm gonna not eat any sugar, just like all the things you mentioned.
Right.
And you're planning, and then you're thinking, oh gosh, well, I know this is how I would think. If I'm not gonna eat any sugar on January 1st, I need to eat all the sugar in December.
Before, yes. Yeah, people often binge, right? It's like, I gotta get it out of my
I gotta do it
system.
all now before, and I gotta sit on the couch for 3 weeks because now I'm gonna start walking, so you just gotta lazy it up. I would be that's how my brain would work about it. So if I'm doing all of those things up to that minute and then I'm planning for the next thing, I'd just be like, ugh, do I really want to go for a walk or do I really, you know, but I think we get these little flickers of intuition, right? We get these little ideas or like we'll just be doing something and thought, gosh, it'd be really nice to go for a walk right now. It's a beautiful day. So go and do it. Like just
Exactly.
go for a walk. Um,
Exactly. Yeah,
but it
there's no
takes
magic start date for things, right? It's like January 1 isn't magic, like the beginning of the month isn't magic, like
And I meant to do some, investigation into resolutions and when they started and when that started and why it started, but maybe I'll do that while, other people are talking because I'm really curious about that, like, when did that start that all of a sudden we have to do things starting on January 1st?
seems
But
kind of
in
crazy, right?
It does seem crazy. So that's why I wanted to do the Health Expo now so that we could all talk about these things and give everybody a pass on this resolution thing. Like, hey, this isn't a thing that you have to do. But if you want to improve your health and you want to make changes, there are ways to do it. And we can help you with that, right? We can all help you with
Exactly.
that. And there's something here for everyone. So, Lynn, thank you so much for being with us again. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
you. And stay tuned. We have got another really amazing speaker coming up. We've got Misty Lucas joining us in just a few minutes. So, we will be right back. Thanks, Misty Lucas. Misty has joined us before. She spoke at the annual conference last year, and she is a yoga teacher and a breathwork facilitator. And today she's going to talk to us about how our breath affects our nervous system. So, Misty, thank you.
Amazing. I'm so excited to be here and welcome all of the She Is Me Health Expo attendees. It's just such an amazing community and so grateful to be a part of it. And really excited to share about accessing freedom from stress with the power of your breath. It's such a gift to share breath work with people. And as a yoga teacher, I often share it with my one to one clients and really get to see how breath work can really change somebody's life. Right. And I was excited to have this topic, but just like some quick info on me and how the heck I got here and why I do what I do. So I used to work in law. I always call it my former life. Um, and I'm sure a lot of us have that idea or that feeling, and that's our own story. And mine is I worked in personal injury law. So I really worked in a sort of fast paced, go, go, go environment, dealing with people who were really at a very low point. They were injured or ill, needed to access benefits, fighting insurance companies. So lots of different things, moving parts. And it was a very confrontational type of work because dealing with an opposing side and yeah, and so I could get fired up, but it was working probably 60-hour weeks. And then I loved my hot yoga, so very much into my own practice. I was a runner, so constantly pushing my body, keeping it go, go, go. And then it was around 2015, I started not to feel so great. And I think it was around 2014, 2015, not feeling so great. And ultimately ended up with a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. And that was really when I felt like my world bottomed out. And it started this journey, this healing journey, which I'm still on, still open to learning and navigating new things. But what came to light to me in that moment that could no longer live the life that I was living. And it wasn't just about my career, it was about constantly pushing myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like pushing, pushing, pushing to the point that I didn't ever give myself time to breathe, to rest. And ultimately, my body started to react. And not resolving or integrating things that would be going on in my life or integrating things from my past. And really, it just showed me how I needed to slow down and started to understand. So I have lots of reflections of, oh, okay, I did that. And as I grew, I got to see how stress was impacting me and what I was doing to not bring myself back to wellness. And one of the things I learned on my journey as a yoga teacher, I became a yoga teacher and I left law in 20, I think it was 2018, I finally walked away and went into yoga full time. And then I've now transitioned into coaching with a blend of my yoga because I love yoga so much and totally, truly believe in the power of yoga, in particular, restorative yoga. And so basically, what I did though is moving into yoga was where I sort of started this journey. I started taking my trainings, started to really come deeper and doing the work. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was the power of the breath. And when we think about the breath, it has this power to heal our body, to calm our minds, to connect us back inward, right? To connect us to the body, to the present moment, to spirit. It really allows everything to slow down and for us to be here in the moment and not worrying about every other thing we can think of. And so as a yoga teacher, and if you've done yoga or you've experienced yoga, you've probably heard it called pranayama. And that is a Sanskrit term for yoga. And when we look at the translation of pranayama into English, which it's never a direct translation, but it's translated to this idea of controlling or regulating and extending our life force energy within us. So it's such a beautiful way for us to tap into that life force energy. Like when you think about breathing, you're drawing in life force energy and you're releasing what is not serving you. And so I have found like breath changed my life. Like when I really started to access it, understand it, and then I'm watching it and witnessing how it changes the life of other people that I work with, of clients that I've worked with. In particular, I remember this beautiful soul and she had been in a car accident and she was a mom. She's like full-time employee at a hospital, very busy life, hockey, taking her kids everywhere, had this car accident and really got stopped in her tracks with her injuries. And so I came in to give her private yoga lessons and I spent the whole first session just focusing on her breath, teaching her a breath practice that she could use on all of that. And the next time I came to see her, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I actually slept." I have not slept in months because it'd been a while since her accident. And just using that breath practice completely changed my life. And I woke up feeling like I had some energy. And not that she didn't still have healing to do, but it really shifted her perspective. It gave her a tool to be able to access more energy, to decompress, and to kind of get out of that anxiety that she'd been feeling for so long. So, before we dive right into all of the power of this beautiful breath, I just always love to touch on stress. I think in the annual conference, I talked about stress, and I think it's so important that we understand sort of the basics of how stress impacts our body and the nervous system. So, like Lisa shared, I'll be talking about how breath can help build resiliency into our nervous system and really help us regulate the autonomic nervous system, help us regulate that sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which are both impacted with stress. right? And so when we think about stress, just inviting you to, in this moment, think about, what does stress mean to you? When I say that, what is stress? Because each of us are going to have our own radically unique ideas, because we are all radically unique humans, and you may have experienced different stressors than me, and vice versa. So it's just really important that we tune in and notice, what does it mean to me? Like, how does stress show up for me? And so I like to think of stress as an imbalance in our thinking, right? Also consider this idea of when we are over responsible, that can create stress in our lives, right? When we're always sort of reaching out and trying to do everything, taking on responsibilities of everything and everyone around us. When we have anxiety, that can be an expression of stress. So you may experience your stress as an anxiety. At a physical level, it can really show up as complete exhaustion. When we're thinking mentally, it could be that we're distracted, like easily sort of shifting, not being able to focus, not being able to really get done what we want to get done, because our minds are bringing us into all of these different directions. At an intellectual level, it could really be a sign of frustration. And it was so interesting as I was preparing to connect with all of you today. This, I think it was Monday, because Monday was a holiday. I had this high level of frustration, and I had to do some reflection, because sometimes I can get in that moment, like we all may, well, I can, I can't speak for other people, but I can get sort of in this cycle, this like spinning wheel of stress. And then for me, it was coming out as frustration, because I was trying to do so many things for so many other people, and none of it was coming from my heart. I wasn't doing anything from a place of like heart centered. It was more of like an external. People needed this stuff from me, so I was doing it and not really slowing down, breathing, and noticing, am I really in a space to do that right now? Anyway, ultimately, it landed in this huge amount of frustration. Um, and I just had like a little hissy fit. Like I just had to release that frustration, because it was, I could feel it in every cell in my body. And I just thought, oh, very interesting that that's how it really showed up for me, as I'm prepping for this talk today. And really, a source of stress is our thoughts. When we think about that, it really is this idea. It's the thoughts that we have can create the stress and the responses in the body. And so, really, thinking of two sort of types of stress: acute and chronic. Acute is in that moment, and you might feel it thinking about getting into a job interview or having public speaking. You can have that acute stress. It's like really in the moment, and you feel it, and you might notice some reactions going on in the body. And then chronic is this long term. It's like you just don't shut off that stress response. And so when we're thinking about a stress reaction that's happening in the body, you can think of it sort of as like, well, we're activating our sympathetic nervous system. So it's like we're pressing the gas pedal down. In If you think of our nervous system as a car, the gas pedal is pushed down, pedal to the metal. That's what my dad used to say. And so we're activating that sympathetic nervous system. It comes on full speed in an instant. It's like two beats of a heart, like two heartbeats in your sympathetic. As soon as you have a perceived threat, your sympathetic nervous system automatically turns on, because your body is amazing and it wants to protect you. So it's activating to help us cope with this escalating, threatening experience or situation in front of us. So when we're activating that sympathetic nervous system, you might notice some things physically. Your heart races, so you might sweat, you might notice some tension coming into the body. Your breath starts to quicken, like really starts to go faster. And then what also is going on in the body is certain systems start to slow down. Our immunity slows down. So our immune system starts to slow down. Our digestion starts to slow down. Our growth and repair of cells, our reproductive systems, all the systems that are deemed non essential. Because what your sympathetic nervous system is doing is kicking on, it's firing to get you into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's trying to determine, what do you need to do to come to safety. So it's shutting off anything it feels as non critical functioning, right? Your blood's rushing out to your extremities so that if you need to get out of there, you can. So that's how amazing our bodies are, right? We're meant to do that. We're meant to have that acute like stress response. We're meant to be able to come into that. And then what we're meant to do is to come out of it, right? We're meant to come back and move into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. that rest and that digest place. And when we move, so sometimes thinking of your nervous system on a continuum, right? Going into the sympathetic, that fight or flight, and then moving, applying the brakes, and coming back down to your parasympathetic nervous system. And so we're meant to do that. And when we come into the parasympathetic nervous system, our systems come back online. The digestion, our immune system, everything comes back online, right? And it gives us an opportunity to integrate what just happened, integrate what's going on, start to reflect on what happened, and to be able to move through it in a more peaceful and calm way. And so that deactivation of a stress reaction is that the brain is no longer seeing that there's a threat or a danger, sends out this alarm cancellation, and then the fight or flight response starts to come out. But in the meantime, when we think about fight or flight and sympathetic, we're also kicking off hormones into the body. So when we go into that sympathetic response, we've got cortisol, adrenaline, that's kicking into the body to make sure that we can do what we need to do. So it takes about 20 minutes for your body to physically recover from this acute stress reaction. Your adrenaline can surge up to an hour, and it just is going to take time for regulation of the hormones, which can take up to 4 hours, right? So all of this stress reaction, it all happens automatically, but we want to just find tools to come out and we're not in it for a really long period of time. But when we think about today's world, this idea of multitasking, doing everything for everyone, working at home, always being connected, go, 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 feeling all of this pressure to, this comparison that I find I really deal with clients. It's like always trying to do everything for everybody. Then we can actually stay in this chronic state of stress, never feeling like things are done, having these long to-do lists, not being able to just let stuff go, staying in the mind, anxiety, all of that's happening. And so we're staying in this chronic state of stress, which can be thought of as this idea of you're no longer pressing maybe pedal to the metal, but it's like a low rev. And so Dr. Gabor Mate, who wrote the book The Cost of Hidden Stress, he really talks about how even like if we have traumas that we're not processing or integrating or taking that time, it creates this higher set point, and then we're in this chronic state of stress, which we might not even realize. Right? We might not even notice that we're living in this state of stress. But if we're not actively taking steps to care for ourselves, to slow it all down, to put ourselves into that parasympathetic state, we might then we're bringing in that chronic state of stress. And so when we're in that, it's constantly pumping these hormones into the body. It just keeps bringing it in, which can impact our arteries. It can impact our blood vessels. It can develop autoimmune illnesses. There's been studies that can say it can relate to cancer. It can really create cardiovascular diseases. So the stress can really impact how our bodies, like physically, are functioning. And then we think about how worrying and fear and like the thing with chronic stress, and I find it so interesting because I really try not to watch the news because I find that very triggering, but they're always doom and gloom. It's always, I'm not saying to put your head in the sand and not be like see what's going on in the world, but sometimes we just need to walk away and not focus so much because it can really activate, depending on how sensitive you are, it can activate that stress response in the body, which then creates those physical symptoms, and then we start rolling down that, bringing in the illness or disease into the body. And we're not meant to stay in chronic stress forever. And what can ultimately happen is it leads to burnout, and burnout really is a severe disturbance of some vital mechanisms in our body. So it could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be metabolic, it could be your immune system. And really, so when we get there, it's like a complete recovery takes a long time and it takes a lot of work. And I've been there. Like I've been there. And I really feel like my exploration into this was like complete burnout. And it took me years to recover. Um, don't get me wrong, I don't regret it. It's given me so much. I'm here today with you because of it. But this is the idea of like understanding even a snippet of what stress is doing. And now we're going to move into how breath can help create that freedom and help you build that resiliency into your nervous system. Right. So when the thing is we all breathe. Every single human being breathes. And it's my question is, do you consciously breathe? Our bodies are amazing, as I said, and we breathe automatically. That's how our bodies are functioning. But when we start to consciously breathe and really truly become aware of our breath, then we start to take back control and the ability to shift between these two states in our nervous system. Then we're able to be like, okay, I'm in this stress state, I'm anxious, whatever it is, and then you're be able to move yourself into another state, right? Into that calmer state. So I'm reading this book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I don't know if anybody's read it, but it was so interesting to me. I had to read this little bit to you because right off the first chapter, he talks about breath. Um, well, he references Fritz Perls, who is a psychiatrist and founder of Gestalt therapy. So make sure that I give credit. He said, fear is excitement without the breath. And he goes on to say, here's what this intriguing statement means. The very same mechanisms that produce excitement also produce fear. And any fear can be transformed into excitement by breathing fully with it. On the other hand, excitement turns into fear quickly if you hold your breath. When scared, most of us have a tendency to want to get rid of that fearful feeling. And we think by denying or ignoring it and holding our breath is a way in order to get it to leave. So fear and excitement come from the same place. The only difference is the breath. And so it's just another way, like another example of how powerful our breath is and how it can shift an emotional state. It can shift from fear to excitement when we take that opportunity to breathe and not hold our breath. Something I found interesting, I was reading an article that about 30 years ago, they had measured that sort of the average breathing rate used to be 6 to 8 breaths per minute. And now the studies are showing that as of today, the breathing rate is 12 to 14 breaths per minute. And they note that this increase, so that's almost double, it is double, but they're noting that that's because of the anxiety and stress that people are experiencing on a daily basis. So we're now breathing faster, right? So if you think about when you breathe, like I talked about, when you go into that stress state, you might notice that you're sort of breathing a lot faster, shorter into the chest, not deeper into the belly. And this is very common because we live in such a stressful and anxiety ridden state right now, right? In society. And so a lot of times people are unconscious with their breath and they don't really even know about their breath, right? Or what it's like at different times. So, what it's like when they first wake up, what it's like after they eat. They've not really made that conscious connection to their breath. And if you think about it, our breath is so deeply connected to who we are that if we're unconscious with our breath, are we unconscious with ourselves? Do we know ourselves? Right? It's just something to think about. I think it's an intriguing thought to consider that if you're unconscious with how you're breathing, are you unconscious with who you are at the core of who you are? And if you are, that's okay. It's an opportunity to grow and to shift. And so when we think of yogic breath practices, it's really an opportunity to access different tools. So there's so many different breath practices, and we're going to do a breath practice today, which I'm super excited about. But you can use yogic breath to sort of engage your energy, like uplift you. You can do it to calm you. You can do it to calm the mind, to bring you out of anxiety. You can do it to fire up the body, to warm the body. You can do it to cool the body. So there's lots of ways that we can use our breath, lots of different yogic breath practices. And really, if we think about it, breath is the steward of the process of extending our life force energy when we take the time to breathe and really access that life force energy. And so we want to create optimal conditions for our health and well being. And when we don't, and breathing is one of those ways, we can lay the foundation for illness. We can lay that foundation for that dis-ease to come into the body. And so when we change our breath patterns, it can change our experience. It can change our experience with pain. So there's a lot of research that's been done with breath practices being able to help alter chronic pain. Um, we can change our emotions, we can change our overall state of mind, and it can really change how we move the body, right? So that's how powerful the breath is, that it can impact all parts of us. So it's really such a valuable agent for change. I mean, we literally take 20,000 breaths per day. So we do a lot of breathing. And it's noticing, do you breathe in through your nose or are you a mouth breather? And again, if we breathe through our nose, we're able to filter out a lot of toxins. We're able to help sort of keep through the cilia in our nose, and there's a whole thing around that. It can help deepen the breath into the belly. It can calm ourselves. Shorter inhalations can sort of activate the sympathetic nervous system. Longer exhalations can help calm the system into the parasympathetic nervous system. And noticing, do you breathe deep into your belly? Right? When we breathe deep into our belly and allow that diaphragm to expand, I mean, our bellies, especially for women, I have been told, I can't speak for everybody, but I've been told for so many years, keep your belly in, keep your belly in. And when I found yogic breathing, in particular diaphragmatic breathing, and I was allowed to let my belly out, oh my goodness, the freedom and the shift emotionally once I grew used to it. I mean, and it took work because it was so ingrained in me to hide my belly. And when we think about our abdomen, this is where life comes from. This is where we grow a life. This is where our sexual pleasures arise. This is where our creativity is. It's the center of who we are. It's our hara, it's our intelligence. And 80% of our well being is in our belly. Why do we want to keep it constricted and tight? And when we allow that beautiful belly breathing and let our belly be open and wide and just allow it to receive all of that prana, that life force energy, right? And no longer denying that archetypal feminine energy by constricting it, right? We no longer interfere with the beautiful function of the core of who we are, right? So I just love belly breathing. So when we think about it, it's the art of learning our breath is a beautiful way for us to really absorb all that prana, all that life force energy. And when we think about optimal breathing, it's about really learning to breathe with the task that's at hand. So, do I need to breathe to calm myself? What does that optimal breathing look like? And then if I'm running, that's going to be different. Or if I'm doing my yoga practice, that breathing will be different. So we want to just learn this idea of this optimal breath because it's so powerful. And so sometimes it could be breathing less, right? And it's just sometimes we need to take a little like quicker breaths, like whatever that is. But it's just knowing that we can shift our breath to shift our state. So I'm going to do an exploration. I'm going to guide you through an exploration because the first thing, as I said, is that sometimes we are unconscious with our breath. So I want to share this simple breath awareness. So it's not about changing your breath at all. It's just about simply notice your breath and connect to your breath without changing it. And interestingly, when I was first introduced to this, I'd love for you to notice when you start to bring awareness to your breath, do you automatically change it? Because I did, like I really did. And the teacher that I had talked about that's ego. That's your ego trying to get in there and get you to change your breath because it should be something different. So I'm inviting you just to notice your breath, right? This is a practice that will provide you a way to control attention and sustained focus, right? And it really is just about observing the qualities of your breath. And when you're in this experience, you're able to really come into your own radically unique being because you are and experience, does your posture change? How you're sitting? If you're lying down, does it feel different? Do you feel more connected to the earth? So play with, you can try this breath awareness in all different postures, sitting, standing, laying down, and notice how the sensations in your body change. Notice how the breath changes, noticing where it travels in, notice what comes up in the body, noticing any tension, notice your mind, notice emotions. Really allow yourself as you explore this is to be present and just focus on the sensations that arise instead of the breath, instead of focusing on your thoughts around the breath. Just notice the sensations that arise with the breath and not the thoughts that are there. Because it's an opportunity to notice the correlation between breath, between tension and sensation, or if you have pain, then noticing all of that. So, this is a technique that chronic pain patients can utilize because it helps with that pain education versus a direct experience. And it gives them information. Like if I slow my breathing down into an area of the body where I'm experiencing pain, I can create maybe some spaciousness. Maybe I can be with it. Maybe I can just allow it to be where it is the way it is. So you can use this technique anywhere at any time and nobody will know you're doing it, right? So I'm just going to invite you to just soften your gaze. I love putting hand to heart, but you find a comfortable way, plant those beautiful feet on the earth. And I just want you to soften your gaze and bring your awareness to your breath. And so as you're noticing, tune in and notice the rate of your breath. So what is the count of your inhalations? What is the count of your exhalations? Noticing the depth of your breath. Does it stop short in your chest? Does it draw down deep into the belly? Is the breath rigid? Is it smooth? Notice any sensations that are activated as you breathe in and out. Seeing if you can notice the temperature of the air that you're drawing into the body. And noticing the temperature of the breath as it leaves the body. Is your breath continuous from the inhalation to the exhalation, or is there a pause? Notice how your body moves as you breathe in. And how does your body move as you breathe out? And as you're just simply being aware of your breath, how is your mood in this moment? What would you associate as your mood? Is there a color that you're associating with your inhalations and your exhalations? I'm just taking another round of breath. When you're ready, just opening your eyes, coming back in. And so that's breath awareness. That is that if you, as we talked today, find that you are unconscious in your breathing, such a beautiful way just to slow down, to tune in, and to notice. Notice your breath. Notice what arises. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice the sensations. It really allows you to come in to this moment. Okay, so there's been so much research done on how breath can create that connection between mind and body and the effects that it has on the physical body. And I talked about how breath can help with pain management. So there's been research done that it can help with pain management, anxiety, heart disease. It can help reduce hot flashes, can lower blood pressure all through conscious breathing. And they have done so many studies about how yoga breath can influence neurocognitive, psychophysiological, biochemical, cardiorespiratory, and metabolic functions in healthy individuals. And it can really show positive outcomes for people who do have anxiety or cardiovascular disease, respiratory disorders, things like that. Like they've done these studies that have shown how the breath is really supportive. So when we think of slower rhythmic breath practices, those have shown results of shifting the autonomic nervous system into that parasympathetic dominant state. So when you practice that, like once we get, if you've always been living like I think of it like, in my mind, I visualize it as like vibrating at this high state, the sympathetic nervous system. And when we slow our breathing down, we can actually shift into that parasympathetic nervous system, right? It can actually just start to calm this ourselves. But there's also been research done on the faster paced breathing, so such as the Kalabati breathing, the Bhastrika breath, which is a sharp inhale and exhale. And those have enhancement. They can enhance our memory and it can activate our sympathetic nervous system. So there's been lots of different studies done on different types of breath work. And there's a book, Yoga and Pain Management. Neil Pearson, I think, is one of the authors, and so much information in there about the breath. So helpful for me when I'm working with people and even for myself. So, but what I did want to explore today is called alternate nostril breathing. So we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to make sure I got an actual breath practice in. Breath awareness is a breath practice that, and if you feel more comfortable doing that, go back to that as I walk us through this alternate nostril breathing. It's also known as Anuloma Viloma, which means alternate nostril, or Nadi Shodhana. And that is really sort of translated to purifying the nadi or prana channels. So, this technique quickly relieves stress and anxiety. And what it's doing is it's balancing the two hemispheres of the brain. So, when we're in a state of anxiety, that's like part of our brain is overactive, right? Something is sort of on high alert, it's overactive. This is a breath practice that balances both hemispheres of the brain. So it can help us come out of that anxiety ridden state, balances the nervous system, and it can really still the mind and leave us mentally alert, but in a really relaxed state. And so it can also help get both nostrils functioning properly. Benefits are this: it can bring clarity, balance and calm the mind, and balance and calm our emotions, purifies the subtle energy channels. It can prepare the mind for meditation. It can actually even be thought of as a form of meditation. It can bring around a deep sense of calm and serenity, which alleviating those frenetic states of the mind, right? When our mind is racing. It can help relieve headaches. So if you're a headache sufferer, you could try this. And it can normalize our heating and cooling cycles of the body and even our circadian rhythms. So this is a practice that could be really good for jet lag if you travel a lot, if you're crossing time zones. So let's just, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk us through it, but just to give an idea so you can soften your gaze if that feels better and you're not watching the glare of the screen, is you're going to take your right hand up and you're going to use your right thumb to plug when we get there, to plug the right nostril, and then the right ring finger to plug the left. So we're just kind of going to go back and forth. Okay. So find a nice comfortable seat. So I'm going to invite you to do this seated. So really just get those sits bones side to side, back and forth, root yourself down. Soften your gaze. Come back into noticing your breath. And so I'm really going to challenge you, if you're not used to your breath awareness, just simply notice as you're breathing, does one nostril feel more open than the other? And just notice. Just notice with that sense of curiosity. All of this just is that playful curiosity of, isn't that interesting? All right. Now we're going to bring that right hand up. So if you have a desk, you can rest your elbow, or you can take your left hand to hold the elbow of the right. You're going to take that right thumb onto that right nostril. And it's not like a hard press, just a gentle closing of the nostril. Inhale through the left nostril. Take a pause and then close the left nostril with the ring finger and exhale through the right nostril. And that's all we're going to do. So now we're going to inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale through the left, inhale through the left, pause, close the left, open the right, exhale through the right, inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale through the left, inhale through the left, pause, close the left, open the right, exhale through the right, inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale. Now I'm going to allow you just to do a few rounds on your own. And it's okay if you get confused or mixed up. Just find your flow, find your rhythm. One more round. When you're done, just allow yourself to release your hand and come back to that awareness and notice. Just noticing if the nostrils have changed. Noticing if you feel more balanced. Notice how your body feels and your emotions. Noticing your thoughts. And then when you're ready, just gently opening the windows of your eyes. And really, you can play with this and set an intention to balance the brain in order to help you stay engaged with your practice. But it's just really a beautiful practice that's useful at the end of a long day, maybe when you're just trying to quiet the mind and just enjoy deep rest. So I just thank you so much. And I really hope that you enjoyed that and just found some tools that can help access that resiliency in your nervous system and move from that state of stress to a calmer place. Oh, there's my website if you want to reach out and connect. I'm happy to do that. And yeah, and just answer any questions. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I love I love intentional breathing. I love being that mindful and that, I think that's a really easy way to teach mindfulness. Just that simple exercise because you have to focus. you you have to
Yeah.
focus on what you're doing, right? You're like release, now breathe out because I wanted to breathe out and then so you have to really pay attention. But a couple of things that I have taken away from what you talked about was the fear and excitement being the same thing, but the difference is the breath. And I know when you were coming on and going to talk about this, I immediately thought about when I was a kid growing up in the chaos and the uncertainty that I did. Um, I held my breath a lot. And I
Mm.
had to learn as an adult to not hold my breath all the time when I was in a situation that I was feeling fearful or uncertain or, you know, but I would literally hold my breath until my body would be like, okay, breathe now.
Yeah.
And so I realized that just a couple of years ago when I was working with somebody and I realized I was holding my breath around that person and I thought, okay, I need to stop working with this person,
Mhm.
right? That person's creating this um, reaction in me. Like I'm automatically holding my breath. It's not. I need to be aware of this. It's not a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, And it reminded me of being a kid and being scared, and, that was the only thing I could control, so I was gonna hold on to it.
Yeah.
But the other thing about talking about chronic pain and pain and whatever, I mean, we teach Lamaze, right? We teach Lamaze in childbirth, and I had both my children using breathing instead of drugs, so I had no, natural childbirth, no drugs, just using breathing techniques, which made me feel like $1,000,000 afterwards. Man, I felt like I could get up and run a marathon afterwards. I was so excited and I was so hungry and I was, so the energy was just amazing that like, oh my gosh, I just did this thing and I didn't have the after effects that some people have when they are taking, painkillers or whatever it is, blocks or
Mhm.
whatever to have your child. So it's a powerful, powerful thing. Um,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to give you that 2 cents. But thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. And everyone, please practice that nostril breathing technique because not only are you getting the benefits of the breath, but you're getting the benefits of that mindfulness and that break
Mhm.
that everybody needs. Just 5 minutes, 5 minutes of doing that, and you're increasing your health tenfold by just being mindful, just doing that intentional breathing, oh my gosh, just those 2 things will help you
Yeah.
immensely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Misty, thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank you, Lisa.
much.
It was so
I really
amazing.
I'm so glad you joined us again, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we will see you, um, again and again and again, and, we have Stacy Roberts coming up, and she's going to talk about burnout. So stay tuned. If
Oh,
you
wow.
do not see if you not see anything for a little bit, don't fret. I'm trying to fill up that space, but it does go black. We'll be back at the top of the hour, so don't worry. We'll see you soon. Here we go.
Okay, so burnout again. We're going to talk about burnout again today. And I know that many of you are probably burnt out from talking about burnout, right? It's been a long time, some years now that we've been beating the drum regarding burnout. Why are we talking about burnout again? Stacy, why are you talking about burnout again? And the reason why I believe this topic is of the utmost importance is because I think often we don't really truly recognize the signs, the symptoms. We kind of gloss over things that could be causing burnout. We don't often recognize those red flags associated with burnout until it's too late. This is the reason why burnout is so important. 2023 is here. We want to welcome it with open arms, and we want to step into 2023 with all of the necessary tools to succeed in this year, to make this year the best year ever. And that is what I want for you. That is what I want for all of us. So we're going to revisit burnout one more time. One more time. We're talking about recognition, recovery, and reduction of burnout. And I want to, as always, when I'm giving talks like this, start with an air of transparency. One of the most important things as women that we can do is share our stories, because it's through the vein, through the catalyst of stories, that we can share our experiences, let one another know that we're not alone in any struggle that we're dealing with, and we can offer very valuable information to one another as to how we overcame, how we overcome obstacles and things that are in our way. And so I am not, the power of sharing stories is not lost on me, especially as a clinician, especially as a consultant. These are things I use all the time with clients, all the time with patients, even on that one-to-one level at the bedside, because I want people to know, and I want women in specific to know, that you are not alone. And even someone as high functioning as myself, yes, I deal with burnout too. Let me tell you my burnout story. 2019 was a year. It was a good year. It was a good year, and it was ending well for me. My mom and I decided to travel to Costa Rica together in September for a 2-week long vacation, and we were so excited about it. This was our first time traveling, just her and I together. And we had a well, actually, it wasn't the first time. It was one of a few opportunities that we had to travel together. But we were going to be gone for 2 weeks this time, just her and I. It was a wonderful bonding experience. And while we were vacationing, I took that moment to really outline what it was I wanted to do for the year 2022. I had it all planned out, all laid out. I wanted to strike out on my own and create a brand new business. I wanted to volunteer more. I wanted to be more socially active. I wanted to make a mark and etch my mark deeper than what I was doing in the past. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to do something different, something more powerful. So I devised my plan, and we arrived back on US soil, and I was so excited about implementing all the plans I had created in Costa Rica in preparation for 2022. And then, as you well know, 2022 came, and it came with a vengeance, and it totally upended our world. As a member of that global community, certainly I was greatly affected by the pandemic. But as a clinician, there was a certain level of impact that I experienced along with my medical colleagues that I think the rest of the world was not privy to. It was a very, very difficult year in medicine as a clinician. 2021, I'm sorry, 2020, I think I said 2022. 2021 was not much better, and 2022 not much better. I know people are describing the situation we're in right now as a post-pandemic era. We're not in a post-pandemic era. This is still I call it a peri-pandemic era. There's still there's a lot of things going on as a result of the pandemic that I think we will be dealing with for a very long time. But being in the thick of it at the top of 2020, very, very difficult. So going into the hospital, seeing patients like I normally do in the emergency room, seeing them in acute settings, but adding on top of that, this pandemic, the fear, the uncertainty, the level of patients that we were seeing every day, staying late to fulfill um, requirements from my employer, coming in early to try to help lessen the load, picking up more responsibility to help my colleagues get through what we were going through, just trying to pitch in just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. It took its toll on me. But again, being a high functioning person, as I've always been, I just pushed through, pushed through, pushed through. 2020, 2021, 2022. I want to add, though, that in addition to the clinical stress, there were also a series of uprisings that happened in that same time frame. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rashard Brooks, right in my own backyard of Atlanta, Georgia. And I became very, very involved in the grassroots movement as it pertains to Black Lives Matter and other local movements in Atlanta. Canvassing, protesting, writing, speaking, advocating, doing all of these things. So that piece of the puzzle combined with my clinical work really made things very difficult for me. I've always been the kind of person, and when I say high functioning, I know many of you can relate. High functioning women, I know you can relate when I say what I'm about to say. We can very easily have 10, 20, 30 plates spinning at one time, and we balance them all, and we can walk through the world balancing all of those spinning plates with grace and poise and elegance, and the outside world thinks that we're doing fine, we're doing well. And we pride ourselves a lot of times on the fact that we can manage that level of function. 2021 was the year that the plates for me fell down. And I recognized very quickly that if I didn't do something about the way that I was managing the stress level at work, the way that I was managing the stress levels pertaining to the uprisings and social injustices, that something detrimental was going to happen. I could just feel it. You know how you can just kind of feel this sense of impending doom, or maybe a sense of foreboding in a way. That was how I felt in 2021. 2021 was the first year that I ever sought counseling. I signed up, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I share that story because, again, I want you to understand that if you don't recognize the signs and symptoms of burnout, coupled with recognizing the way that you deal with stress, it can be a very, very dangerous situation. And this is the reason why it's very important at the top of 2023 that we have conversations like this. I wonder if you can relate to the story that I told. If you can see glimpses of yourself in that story. Doesn't mean that you have to be a clinician, doesn't mean that you have to have been involved in the uprisings in any way. But I wonder if you can relate to levels of high functionality, taking on perhaps a bit more than you should, not knowing when to say no, not knowing when to pump the brakes, not knowing when to unplug, rest, rejuvenate. I wonder if you can relate to any of that. I'm sure you can. So today we're talking again about burnout, and we're going to talk specifically about how to recognize it. What is burnout anyway? We have this idea of what it is, but we want to get really specific in terms of what burnout really is, not some textbook clinical definition, but we need to go beyond the barriers of that. We're also going to talk about recovery from burnout. What can you do? What tactical, tangible things can you do to recover from burnout? And then that kind of flows into the next part of this, which is reduction. How can we reduce the prevalence of burnout in our lives, especially moving forward in this new year of 2023? And lastly, I want you to take the next hour with me to reflect. Reflect on your life, reflect on who you are. Again, taking cues from the story that I shared with you, reflect on how you perhaps deal with stress, reflect on how you've been affected by burnout. This is a really important time to do that because it's something that we often don't do as women. We don't sit down and think and reflect on what we've endured, what we've gone through, and ways that we can turn the page in a healthy way. This is what we want to do. So, again, what exactly is burnout? What is it? It's this term that we hear all the time. It's something we know exists. And if someone were to ask you, what is burnout? How would you define it? You would likely come up with a decent definition of it. But I want to share the definition that comes from the World Health Organization. And that is that burnout is almost a constellation, if you will, of things. It's a constellation, it's a concept made up of a variety of changes that we may experience as a result of excessive stress. We know that stress is a part of life. We know this. This is nothing new. We know that that's just par for the course. That's not burnout. Stress is part of burnout, but burnout is stress on 10. Burnout is stress times 15. Burnout is stress on steroids. That's what it is. And it's important to understand too that burnout is not only stress, but the ways that stress is manifested in the physical and mental apparatus. And I would say the emotional apparatus as well. So, according to the to WHO, World Health Organization, burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress. That's very, very important to underline. Chronic workplace and stress. This is the textbook version of burnout. Okay. So, chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. There are three important dimensions, according to the World Health Organization, three very important dimensions to burnout that I want to share, that I want you to be aware of. The first is feelings of energy depletion or feeling exhausted, having an excessive sense of fatigue or malaise, not feeling well at all, no energy, no get up and go, just low energy and almost a low interest in doing the normal things that you would do, having the normal routine, the normal daily agenda that you would, because of that severe lack of energy and exhaustion. The second dimension to burnout is an increased mental distance from one's job, almost a sense of separating yourself mentally from your responsibilities as an employee. And my story, um, as part of my burnout story, I definitely can relate to that. I mean, there were days I would walk into clinic and my goal was to get in and out of patients' rooms as quickly as possible, not to take lesser care of them, but I just didn't have the mental bandwidth to take on their issues as my own. I'm naturally an empath. I love helping people. And that energy that patients give you often, when they're really going through things, they're very ill. Many of us as clinicians, as heart-centered clinicians, we take that on to a degree. And I felt that if I could mentally distance myself in a way, and even emotionally distance myself from my patients, I wouldn't have to take on so much of what they were going through. I definitely remember that being a part of my story in 2020 and 2021. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension is a feeling of negativity or cynicism or a heavy critique of one's job, never being satisfied, always finding something to complain about. Now, all of us, regardless of industry, we work with someone or know someone who is always the Debbie Downer, always negative, always has something negative to say about everything. And this is, I think, a personality trait for some people, which is totally different than this idea of burnout. And in all transparency, that's something I definitely dealt with when I was going through my burnout phase in 2020 through 2022. I love medicine. Most of us who enter into our careers, ones that we choose for ourselves, we do it because we're passionate about it. And I'm passionate about caring for people. I'm passionate about prescribing them what they need to be healthy. I'm passionate about teaching them and educating them on preventative medicine and things that they can do to optimize their well-being. I walk into the clinic and I live for this every day for over a decade. When 2020 came, that began to wane for me. I didn't have that passion as much as I did before. I was passionate a lot about the work, but not about the workplace. And it's a very important delineation to make there. And that's another thing, again, when we talk about reflecting on something that I want you to reflect on for your own life, your own career. When we talk about passion for the things that we enjoy, work, personal life, when those feelings of passion start to wane, is it a lack of passion for the work? Is it a lack of passion for the family or the social activities or organizations you're a part of? Or is it a lack of passion for the workplace dynamics, for the workplace politics, for the workplace policies and protocols that are constantly changing? And it definitely was the latter for me. So I'd love for you, as we're talking about this today, to reflect on that for yourself. When you were losing that sense of passion, where was it being lost? For the work itself or for the workplace and all the dynamics wrapped up into that? Okay, so that air of cynicism and negativity as it relates to your work is another part of this idea of burnout. Very, very important to understand that, definition. Why? Because that's a WHO definition, World Health Organization. But wait, there's more. There's more to burnout than that. There's more to burnout than what one experiences at work. When I hear this definition of burnout, when I hear about people talking about burnout as it relates to work, I always put my finger up, maybe figuratively speaking. I put my finger up in the air and I ask myself or whoever's listening in my head, well, what about those of us who work from home? What about those of us who have no employer and we have responsibilities at home or we have responsibilities out in the community? What about us? Do we not suffer from burnout just because we don't go to work or there is no workplace where we're exchanging time for dollars or exchanging expertise for dollars? What about us? Do we not, is what we're going through not considered burnout because of that? And the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely. Absolutely, rather. Burnout affects all of us, regardless of where you are. Burnout is much more than what you're exposed to in the workplace environment. Burnout is not just relegated to an office building or a clinic or a hospital or an office or whatever. Burnout can happen there, but it absolutely happens at home. Raise your hand if you're a wife. Raise your hand if you are a mother. Raise your hand if you are a caretaker. Raise your hand if you are a community organizer. You will at some point experience excessive stress in those roles. And although you're not exchanging time for dollars, you're not exchanging expertise for dollars, there is no workplace, you still can succumb to feelings of negativity and cynicism. You still can succumb to feelings of mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion. You still can succumb to feelings of mental, almost escapism, if you will. Think about that. Reflect on that for those of you who don't necessarily fit in that picture perfect box of what the WHO says burnout is, but you definitely have signs and symptoms of burnout. You very well can. And I just want to make sure that you know that it's not necessarily a workplace definition. We're breaking the boxes on that. And I'm so happy to see so many people talking about this thing here, that it's not relegated to just a workplace environment, but it can permeate any place that you exist, that you have responsibilities that can become so overwhelming for you that you begin to exhibit this type of behavior. So we now will talk about causes for burnout. These are very important. Lack of control. Let's talk about these in some detail because this is very, very important. Lack of control. When it comes to workplace, let's call it workplace burnout and personal or home burnout. One of the things that I think contributes to burnout in the workplace is that employers delegate tasks to their employees. There's a certain number of assignments or a certain level of responsibility that we have that's coming down from a superior. We have to come to work at a certain time. Your shift is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is when you're on the clock. If there are expectations for overtime, you are expected to be there. When you are off the clock, we're going to give you a laptop and we're going to give you a cell phone. And on your off time, if we contact you about a certain thing that needs to be done, we're expecting you to do those things in a timely manner. We want you to have this laptop so that you, on your off time, can check in and dial into these reports and this and that and the other, or sign on for a Zoom call for this meeting at 10 a.m. when you're off that day. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean. So this idea of lack of control as it pertains to the workplace environment is an important contributor to burnout. When you don't have control of the way you do your work, when you feel silenced in a way when you feel silenced and you feel like you can't speak up and raise your hand or bring about or bring up the fact that, I think there's a better way that we could be doing X, Y, and Z, as opposed to you doing this. How about we do this? Or I don't really like the way that XYZ is being done, and this is what I propose we do in lieu of that. When you don't feel you have those options available to you, and let's face it, many of us in the workplace don't. We just don't. You sign up to do this job, you're gonna do it this way, you're gonna show up on these times, these days, and if you can't do that, then unfortunately we can't have you here. So that lack of control in terms of controlling the flow of the workday, what you can do, or maybe even how you do your work, is a large contributor to burnout. Many of us, we love the idea of sovereignty, of autonomy, of agency, even in the workplace. And I think that sense of autonomy is removed when we don't have the ability to speak up and say, maybe we can look at this a little differently. Or perhaps, I'm able to do some work at home the same way I'm able to do it here. Let's sit down and talk about how we can make this beneficial for both of us and make it beneficial for me. When that opportunity is taken away from you, that control is essentially taken away from you, and it's a huge contributor to burnout. Now, flip side, that's workplace. What about at home? For those of us who have obligations in the community or have obligations at home with family, with children, with spouses, oftentimes we don't have control there either. Maybe we have a bit more control than what we would in a workplace environment, but not all of us are privy to that in the home with our children, with our families. If you're a caregiver, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Many of us play the caregiver role. Sorry, we don't get the choice to sleep in until 9 o'clock. We have to be up at 7, or we have to be up at 6 to give medications, or to make sure that the person we're taking care of is okay, checking in with them, getting them to the restroom, or feeding them at a certain period of time, or making sure that they get to their medical appointments on time. If you have children, you can't sleep in. There's no sleeping in. You get up, you do the things you have to do. And when you find yourself in that role, it just becomes a part of your identity, but it's not a self-imposed identity in many cases. It's something that you have to do because of the responsibilities that you have. And that is a lack of control, and that can definitely lead to burnout on that side of the coin. Dysfunctional workplace is also another huge source of burnout. When you're working with people that you don't like, there's politics, there's protocol changes every single day, like it was for me in the midst of the pandemic. Every day you walk into the hospital, okay, we did things like this yesterday. Today we're doing them this way. The next day, totally different protocol, totally different policy, and it is so draining. Everyone's confused. No one knows what the right thing to do. Well, I was here yesterday and we were told that the COVID test should be done this way. Well, no, I'm sorry. We were just told today that the COVID tests are going to be handled in this way. And there's just a state of confusion and dysfunction within the group, which can cause burnout in a massive, massive way. The same thing can be said for the home environment, for all the obligations that we have as women outside of a workplace setting. Dysfunctionality is huge. Children may not be getting along. Maybe you're not getting along with your spouse, your significant other. Maybe there are outside things that are going on that are affecting the dynamics of the relationship. Maybe there are social things that are going on. Like I mentioned in my story, there's just, you feel like you're living in I can't even think of the word that I would want to use. It's a dysfunctionality. You're living in a place where you don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know what's left, what's right. You don't know what's up, what's down, and it's hard to take the next logical step because you don't really know what the next logical step is. You kind of lost your way. That's a huge, huge contributor to burnout. Lack of social support, huge. We all need relationships. And I say this often and endlessly. Healthy relationships keep us healthy. When we don't have that support system, that spouse, that counselor, that psychiatrist, that doctor, that provider, that friend to talk to, that person to lean on, that person to vent to, it may not even be that you need any reciprocal advice. It may be that you just need an ear or a shoulder. And when you don't have that, you don't have a way to deal with the excessive stress that leads to burnout. Ultimately, you're just going to go overboard. It's just going to go, it's going to go left. And that's a huge contributor as well. And then work-life imbalance. And this is sadly something that I see women deal with a lot. And I know that you likely can relate. Life and work, as time goes on, just becomes more and more and more confluent, doesn't it? And we don't have that deeply etched line in the sand that separates life from work. And we desperately need to get back to that. It all has to do with boundaries, which are very difficult to implement. For some of us, it's very difficult to implement that. But work being out of balance with life and vice versa is a recipe for disaster and a recipe for burnout. I often tell people that work cannot be a substitute for life. And so many of us have substituted life for work. Work is life. It's what we have. It's our identity. It's who we are. There's so many clients. One of the first questions I'll ask them is, who are you? What are you? How would you describe yourself? And they immediately go into, well, I'm a doctor. I'm an executive. I'm a physician. I am a mental health specialist. I am a nutritionist. I am this, that. I'm an NPH. I'm all these things. And I have to stop them and say, no, I didn't ask you what you do for a living. I asked you, who are you? What are you? Tell me about yourself. Describe yourself to me. Many of us are so locked into this identity of what we do for a living and that being who we are, and us living almost in that straitjacket, as it were. And many times we're desperately trying to get out of it. But we align ourselves so much with that identity that we're afraid to shed it off. It's almost like we put on the coat or put on the armor or put on the clothing of the person that we are in terms of what we do for a living, and we never take those clothes off. Everywhere we go, whether we're in the office or at home or in the street or running errands, buying groceries, going to the bank, we're always identifying as the worker and not the person. We're always identifying as the physician and not the woman that works in healthcare. We identify as the mother and not the woman who has two beautiful children. And we have to be able to separate our work and our responsibilities from life, who we are on a deeper level. This is a very, very important thing and something I work with clients on all the time. Okay. Let's talk about signs and symptoms of burnout. Irritability, being impatient, very, very common. Decreased energy, insomnia. We talked about, feeling exhausted all the time. But the funny thing is, you feel exhausted, but you can't sleep very well. That's another common sign, symptom. Excessive stress. And again, this is an important thing to kind of pause and put a pin in. Stress is a part of life. We all deal with stress on a day-to-day basis. And stress is one of those things that you should be able to deal with. You should have some tools in your toolbox to deal with. Fairly easy to overcome. You got the tools there, you use them, you're okay. That's not burnout. Burnout is stress times 10. It's excessive. It's consuming. It puts you over the edge. You cannot deal with it anymore. You feel like you're going to crack. That's excessive stress. That's burnout. And it's not the same thing as the daily stressors that we deal with on a regular basis. Again, cynicism, being critical about work, being critical about life, being critical or cynical about the roles you play in life, the responsibilities you have in life. These are all classic symptoms and signs of burnout. So there's some important statistics that I want us to be aware of, because again, we need to really understand how prevalent burnout is among those of us who work, those of us who, and when I say work, I mean in the workplace and at home, with all of the outside responsibilities that we have, as I just explained. You're not alone in this. You experience burnout or may have experienced burnout. I've experienced it. You're not alone. Many of us are experiencing burnout and will experience burnout in the future. Nearly 3 in 5 employees report adverse psychological and physical effects from workplace stress. 36% report cognitive weariness. They can't think straight. They're tired mentally. The bandwidth is not there. They can't focus. Many of us, we have a way of focusing on our work, getting things done. We're multitaskers naturally, women are. And one of the signs of burnout is that you just feel like your head is in a cloud, you're in a fog. You can't really dial down on the details of the day, the agenda that we have every single day that we blow through without even thinking about it. Easy peasy. When burnout begins to creep in, that task, that agenda list becomes very, very difficult to get through. 32% report emotional exhaustion. This is another thing. Physical, mental, emotional apparatuses are affected heavily by burnout. Sometimes you'll just burst out into tears for no reason. You just don't know why. You may become depressed. You may become anxious. These are all, especially for those of us, those of you who may not have a past of mental illness. These can be some signs and symptoms that creep in, and you're like, where is this coming from? I've never felt this way before. I've never been anxious. I've never felt this low before. I've never felt this tired before. I always want to sleep. What is going on with me? It may be a sign of burnout. And that's a very common thing to happen. And 44% report physical fatigue. These statistics come from the APA, where they did a 2021 health and well-being survey and found these statistics among those who filled out the survey. This is very, very enlightening, very telling in terms of how prevalent burnout is, how it affects so many of us, and again, pointing out the most common manifestations of burnout. So very, very important to pay attention to. So take a look at this picture. Does any of this look familiar to you? Does any of this look familiar to you? Does any of this resonate with you? Running on empty, your battery is about dead. I see a healthcare worker in that picture. I can definitely relate to that one. I see an executive or a professional on the ground, and she's got all of her things around her, papers and cell phone and computer. It's just unrelenting. I think during the pandemic, this transition from in office or in workplace tasks, moving to in-home, it was helpful, but it also made us hate computers even more than maybe we did in the past. You know, we're a computer savvy society. Everything is tied to our cell phones, our smartphones, and our computers. And moving more online with everything that we do is just another point of exhaustion. It really is. And so I don't know if there's a way around that. I think there's ways that we can cope and deal with it, but I think it'll become more and more and more of our daily lives as time goes on. But I'm sure a lot of this on this picture looks familiar to you, feels familiar to you. This is what burnout looks like. This is what it is. And we've got to get better at recognizing, now that you know what it is, recognizing what it is for yourself, and then having things in place that will help you to overcome and help you to reduce the prevalence of burnout for yourself. Okay. This is another very important thing to note, and that is that burnout culture is indeed a real thing. Burnout is real. Burnout culture doesn't help the situation. We're told constantly work more, sleep less, do more, accomplish more. We hear about hustle culture and doing all, just being a nonstop energizer bunny. This is the culture that we live in. This is the culture that contributes to burnout. And so if I'm speaking to any executives, any entrepreneurs, any business owners, this is something very important for you to recognize. How can you diminish the prevalence of burnout by changing the culture within your workplaces? And for those of us who maybe are self-employed or are working from home with family, being a caretaker, being a wife, spouse, and that type of thing, what beliefs are you buying into that the culture is giving you that is contributing to the prevalence of burnout in your own life? Again, this is why that identification is very important. Identifying yourself as a woman, as a human being, and not a mother first. Identifying yourself as a woman, as a human being, and not a worker first. Because a worker works, a mother is a mother on all the time. A human being, a woman, deserves rest, deserves rejuvenation, deserves empathy, deserves respect, deserves to unplug every now and again. It's all about how you frame this idea of who you are that will help you to relinquish what the burnout culture is serving you or what you've adopted from burnout culture. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not. It's not easy for me. It hasn't been easy for me. And it certainly hasn't been easy for clients that I work with. But this is something we work through as women. We've got to get rid of these ideas or these impositions from burnout culture that tell us that we're lazy, that we need to work harder, that we need to do more, we need to be more responsible for this, and this. We can't say no. It's disrespectful to say no. It's disrespectful to turn down this, and this. We have to begin to identify differently and also identify boundaries that we can implement that make us comfortable, but also give us permission to take good care of ourselves so that we can play those roles every day that we've signed up for, but play those roles well and not from a dry, empty cup, but from a cup that's overflowing. So quickly, because I'm running out of time already. I can't believe I've been talking for 40 minutes, but I hope through the course of this that you've gleaned some information that you've not heard before, and I've given you a way to think about things that you've not thought about in this way before. So steps to burnout recovery, again, I'm separating workplace and personal because I think that's a very important delineation to make because of the definitions we're fed about burnout. But when it comes to the workplace environment, I think the number one thing to do is to explore your options. And I'm going to share a very brief story. At the end of 2022, not even 3 months ago, I decided to go from full time to as needed as a clinician in addition to taking on some volunteer work at a local wellness clinic. I recognized that I wasn't going to be able to change my workplace environment. And so if the workplace environment wasn't going to change to benefit me, I was going to make the change necessary on my own terms for myself. And that's what I did. And I was able, fortunately, to do that. So the first thing I will suggest to you as it pertains to the workplace environment is to explore your options. What options do you have to diminish or reduce the prevalence of burnout? What things could you implement for yourself that would help to diminish that? Begin to brainstorm and get creative about how you can lighten the load for yourself and find that joy in your work again, where you can maintain that passion for the work, but also adopt a bit more passion for the workplace environment. What can make that environment better for you? Explore options. And you may be like me, where you just decide that there's no way that you can optimize the workplace environment. So you're changing the environment. You're still doing the work, but the environment is different for you. The other thing I'll offer to you is to speak up and be the change you want to see. Don't be afraid. As women, we have to be willing to step out for one another. We have to be willing to speak up, to speak truth, and to speak unabashedly about the conditions in which we work. And if we're not happy about those, we need to bring them to the table for open discussion for two reasons. Number one, higher ups will never be able to say they didn't know. Oh, I didn't know that you were feeling this way. I didn't know that you were going through this. Yes, you did, because we sat down and had a meeting and I told you about these things and we outlined the issues and I presented some ideas for change for you. That's the first thing. The second reason why it's important to speak up is because you have a voice and because your voice matters and your voice is important and your voice can change the world. It can truly change the world. I believe that wholeheartedly. You have a voice, you have to use it, not for yourself only, but for all of us, for all of us. This is very important. When we're talking about burnout culture, this is one of the most powerful ways we can change that culture for ourselves. As it pertains to burnout recovery at home, I want to talk briefly about ideas of self-care and self-compassion. As I define them, self-care is an action, self-compassion is an attitude. Self-care is what we do to optimize our physical, mental, and emotional wellness. Self-compassion is the attitude we take with ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, the way we behave with ourselves, the way we speak to ourselves, the way we love ourselves, the time we spend with ourselves. It's very important that we give time to both of those things because self-compassion is what informs self-care. And you have to make time for these things in order to diminish, to recover, and to reduce burnout at home. The most powerful way to do that is to create a routine. And what I would recommend as tactical, tangible ways to treat burnout is to start by creating a morning or an evening routine, because that way you can extract a certain period of time every day to focus on you. And it doesn't have to be an hour, it doesn't have to be 2 hours, it can be 20 minutes, it can be 30 minutes. And it doesn't have to be all at once. You can break those up throughout the day. But if you create a morning or evening routine, it's a way to prepare you for the day or to help you to unwind at the end of your day. Depending on your lifestyle, you may want to opt for a morning or an evening routine. And there's so many ways that you can do that, so many ways that you can build a routine that will help you not only to recover from burnout, to recover from excessive stress, but also to prevent it, to reduce its prevalence and to reduce its recurrence. Okay, so next steps. I have a gift for you. I have a gift for you. There is a QR code there on the screen. And if you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a platform, which is my Talkadot platform. I would love it if you could give me a survey, a review rather, on the topic today. Hopefully you got some valuable information from me today. And if you scan that QR code and go into that survey, I'm going to gift you a checklist that you can use to build your very own self-care routine. Now, it's a self-care routine that I put together for health professionals, but anybody, doesn't matter what you work or what industry you work in, no matter what your role is in the world, any and everybody can benefit from this checklist. So I invite you to scan the QR code and retrieve this burnout recovery checklist. And not only do I want you to download it, I want you to implement it. It's very important. You can have all the knowledge in the world. If that knowledge is not applied, it is useless to you, and it's useless to the world. I want to leave you by saying you are powerful, you are strong, you're weak sometimes too, and that's okay. We can't be strong all the time. You are resilient and you can overcome. Now that you know what burnout is, you know how it manifests, and now that you have the tools to recover, you can experience a level of resilience in your life that you may not have thought possible. You may not have thought possible, but it is with the right tools in place. And this tool that I'm giving you here today is a great first step in making sure that you can recover from burnout if you are currently experiencing it, but also putting something very strongly and very concretely in place that will prevent you from experiencing burnout to the degree that we've described here today in this talk. At this time, if there are any questions, I invite those questions now. And again, I know that this has been valuable, helpful to somebody out there. And this is my website here. Those of you who may want a bit more hand holding or a greater depth of knowledge as it pertains to burnout recovery, but also self-care, self-compassion, I invite you to visit the website there on your screen that you see right now and get in touch with me so that I can be of more help to you on a deeper level and certainly one-on-one. Okay, if there are no questions, I want to thank you for joining me on this talk about burnout, recognition, recovery, and reduction. It has been an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere in the future, either online or in person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to get your slides out there. Wonderful. Thank you. I wanted to, I took lots of notes because they're fantastic. But one thing I wanted to say, and this is something that is we're in total alignment about, is using your voice and using your voice to speak up and speak out, especially in the workplace. Because there is this ongoing change, and a lot of people have been talking about quiet quitting and all of these other new things, but really, if we just use our voice, we just ask for what we want, or we see something that's not right, whether it's happening to us or to others in the workplace, especially other women. I mean, I spent 30 years in corporate. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, I did experience burnout. I have children. At when they were young, I became a single mom. I still had a powerful corporate job, and burnout it's real. It happens. And sometimes we don't acknowledge it, and we don't take time to recover. But if we used if I had used my voice, if I had spoken up, if I had gone and said, this doesn't feel right, or this isn't okay, I probably could have, I mean, who knows, but at least I would have felt better about, saying something and trying to change it. But I wasn't ready for that at the time. I wasn't there yet. Now, of course, I would speak up, but now I don't work a corporate job. So
This is not always the way.
yeah. Um, but towards the end of my career, I definitely did speak up, and I actually became a consultant
Mhm.
because I had more control. That was how I could change my situation where I had more control over what it was I was doing, more control over my hours, my projects, my, just everything. I wasn't sort of under that corporate umbrella where nobody wants to make waves and you just kind of suck it up and you do it. And like you said, working crazy hours and doing whatever they expected of you. And I did that for many years, working 20 hours a day or whatever it was that they were requiring me to do. So definitely use your voice, speak out, and to say that yes, your voice matters. So never think that you don't matter. Never think that what you have to say doesn't matter. It does matter. And you're right, you can change the world, but you have to speak up. So one of the reasons I created this platform is so we could all come together and use our voices and speak up and tell our stories like how you started your presentation. Tell our stories and share so that other women know that they're not alone and that they do have the power of this community behind them, so that you don't have to be afraid to speak up. And there's so much help here, and there are so many women in this community that can help you use your voice. So I just wanted to let everybody know. Um, and Stacy, thank you so much. There was so much information in that, and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We had a speaker who couldn't join us today, so we'll be back at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is just in about an hour. So we will see you all very soon. Bye-bye. Rayburn. Stacy's the owner of Stace Fit, and she Stace Fit Coaching, I should say, and she's going to present "Do It Because You Love Your Body, Not Because You Hate It." And she's got this really great video that we're going to play for you right now.
Thank you, Lisa, and shout out to Brie Linehan, who actually put the video together. She is a creator on social media, and I think it's pretty poignant that we brought in some social media clips when we are going to talk about body image and how the media is portraying it for women in the past and still currently today. I think it is truly amazing that despite all of the press that we've had and all of the celebrities speaking out and like real women speaking out about how they have felt attacked by social media or the general media, and how they felt that that has negatively impacted their body image, I feel amazed that it's still something that we're seeing. Whether that be that heroin chic is making a comeback as a trend. If you're not familiar with heroin chic, it was a look in the 90s where you looked so skinny you could potentially have been on drugs. So that apparently is making a comeback as a fashion trend, or whether it's Kim Kardashian losing 16 pounds to fit into a dress that she wore solely for some photographs on the red carpet, and wasn't actually able to sit down and so had to take it off for the rest of the event. I think these things being in the media to this day are still incredibly damaging to women. I'm surprised that Kim Kardashian, being someone who has been targeted because of her body, even when she was pregnant by media outlets, is still promoting such kind of drastic weight loss measures for such a kind of small space of time to have some photographs taken. I think as women, we really need to abolish this unhealthy obsession that we have with body weight and start focusing more on our health and what's happening internally. That's exactly what I wanted to do with Stay Fit Coaching. I wanted it to be a safe space for women, and I wanted it to be a bit more about promoting an overall healthier lifestyle than just crash dieting to fit into dresses or to look good on your holiday or whatever. And I mean, of course, maintaining a healthy lifestyle comes with the benefit that you may have a more desirable physique, but it isn't the be all and end all. And I think this the scale weight fascination that we've been taught is really negative, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in my session. But let me tell you a little bit about me and how I came to be involved in this, and how I can found my passion for coaching, but also my passion for training, just because I really do love my body and what everything that it can do. So like I started out as a pretty skinny child, and I mean like really skinny, quite bony, naturally built that way, kind of, we would say in Scotland, lanky. I was tall, I had long limbs, but I didn't have a lot of fat on the bones. But I had a really good appetite. I loved vegetables. I was never a fussy eater. I would always like eat my meals, no problem. Like everything was fine. And then I went to school, and we're talking like primary school. So you're like ages between 5 and 11 when you're in primary school in Scotland. And kids were mean, and they would make fun of me, and they would call me Skeletor. They would say that I looked like I was dying. Some kids would say that I was anorexic. And that obviously, as a kind of impressionable child, is not good. But we know that kids are cruel, right? And kids say things to people that they don't know the damage that they're doing, and it could be anything. It could be that you're the fat kid, it could be that you're skinny kid, it could be that you develop boobs too early and they make fun of you for that, you know. Kids we expect are cruel, and I think we're resilient enough to kind of get over that as we get older. But the problem that I had when I was at school was that my teachers added fuel to the fire. So while I had kids saying, "You're anorexic, you don't eat, why are you so skinny? You're going to die, look at how bony you are." I also had teachers who would assume that because kids were saying this and because I was skinny and because of my appearance, that this was true. And despite the fact that my parents had confirmed that there was nothing wrong with my appetite, I have a very healthy appetite, I always have, that I was a healthy eater. I ate all of my meals. There was no issues with food. There was no forcing me to eat. And despite the fact that I didn't display any concerning behaviour in regard to food or my mental health at school, my teachers, based on my appearance, would come and sit with me in the lunchroom and watch me eat my lunch. And this was unusual, and it was very obvious because in the lunchroom, all the kids sit at their tables and the teachers sit at a separate table. But I would have one teacher come and sit with me at my table and watch me eat. So what does that do to kids? That tells them that their narrative that you are anorexic or you have something wrong with you is true. And then that gives them more room to bully you and more room to pick on you. And it got to a point for me when I was going to high school that I absolutely hated the way I looked. And not because I looked in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw, but because other people taught me that I should have hated how I looked. And by God, I am glad social media was not a thing when I was at school, because it was hard enough without adding all of that nasty, toxic nonsense about weight and dress sizes and diets and losing 16 pounds in a couple of weeks for a dress fitting. None of that was around. And I think that that potentially was my saving grace. So as I got to like 16 and I got a bit older and I gained a bit of weight, because your body naturally develops when you get a little bit older. You get some hips, kind of grow in the chest area a little bit, although not much, and I still haven't to this day. And people repeatedly told me, "Oh, you look so much better. Oh, you look so much healthier. Oh, you don't look sick anymore." And that should have been insulting, right? But being so young and being so kind of damaged by the things that people were saying, this acceptance for me was like gold. So then I was like, okay, this is great. I gained some weight, and yeah, okay, it doesn't matter that when I take my clothes off, I've got stretch marks because I gained weight quicker than I should have done. Doesn't matter that I've got that, because when people see me with my clothes on, which most people did because I was 16, they think I look better. They've accepted me. And so I ate more, because eating more and gaining weight had gained me acceptance. And the really, really sad thing is, as an adolescent, I wasn't deciding about myself. This was all based on other people. My feelings about my body and how I felt about me was based on what I thought I should feel, because other people were telling me that's how it is. Um, and then, of course, we get older, right? And alcohol comes into the mix. And I don't know about you guys, but I am Scottish, and in the UK, there is very much a social acceptance that people drink a lot of alcohol, and particularly in Scotland. And I know that we have a little reputation for liking our liquor. Um, so obviously, as we grow up, we start to experiment and we do drink and whatnot. And with that came this kind of party girl persona for me. And what I found with that was that I became more popular. So the people that were like, "Oh, you've gained some weight, you look so much better, you look healthier, you don't look sick anymore." When I started to drink and I started to go out and I started to party, they would be like, "Oh my God, you're so much fun. Let's go out this weekend. Let's go out on Thursday. Let's go out this day." And the child in me that didn't feel accepted felt like, okay, so I'm cool, I'm popular, I've got loads of friends, and like we're just having a good time, right? We're going out, we're having a good time. But we weren't having a good time. We were excessively drinking alcohol. And I mean insane amounts. When I talk to people now about how much alcohol I was drinking at that point in time, they look at me like I grew horns. They're like, how? How were you drinking that much at that age? But we were. And I mean, the people I was with were drinking just as much. We were all drinking a lot. And then you're staving off the hangover with fatty, greasy foods. And before you know it, you're gaining more and more weight, and you're not doing any exercise, and you feel like crap all week because you're drinking all weekend. You're not resting, you're not doing anything kind of healing for your body. You're just finishing work on Friday, going straight to the pub, and by the time you're going back to work on Monday, you're just drying out from the night before. And that was a cycle every week. That's what I was doing, and the weight was piling on, and I was partying, and I was popular, but I'm not entirely sure I was happy. I don't know if I was happy because I was too drunk to even realize. And I'd surrounded myself with these people that were like, "Oh, you're so much fun. Like, yeah, let's go out again." But these were also people who were equally as unhealthy as I was, and who would ridicule people that did look after themselves. And I realized as an adult that when you ridicule someone, it's usually because they're doing something that you can't. Because, I mean, as a normal, healthy person, you wouldn't do that, right? But when you are a toxic person, your only action when it comes to someone who is doing something that you're incapable of, or you don't do yourself, and it makes you feel bad about yourself, is to ridicule them. And that's what we were doing. I was doing it as well. I slagged off fit people. I'd be like, "Why is she going to the gym? She's naturally skinny, she doesn't need to go to the gym." I don't know if anyone is naturally skinny. I was naturally skinny. Maybe if I'd taken myself to the gym then, I wouldn't have been ridiculing these people. But yeah, I was around like a people that had this toxic energy that I was feeding off of, and I was very toxic myself. It was very much ingrained in me, that the lifestyle that we had and the constant eating of junk food and drinking was the way it should be, and anyone that didn't do that was a fool. And why would they be any different? And I'm disgusted by them because they look great in their size 8 dress. And it's funny when I think about it now, because now I don't drink very often. I do enjoy a glass of wine, but I would probably only drink like every other month. Um, and it doesn't bother me. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I'm dying for a glass of wine. And I can very much go out on a night out and just take my car and enjoy myself. And now I have friends that if I take my car on a night out and say I'm not drinking, they're just like, all right, okay, cool. Can you run me home? Like designated driver, or yeah, fine, no probs. Whereas back then, I do remember once saying to a friend, I think I'm just going to bring my car. And she said, if you're not going to drink, just don't bother coming. And that's the level of toxicity that we are talking about. So yeah, I mean that was very much where I had gone to, and I do relate the skinny kid not being accepted to this out of control early 20s party girl who was accepted, but for all the wrong reasons. I didn't actually realize that at the time. I was also in a relationship with someone at the time who was a good bit older than me, and who was very controlling in terms of finances, and who didn't really spend a great deal of time with me. I'd moved away from my family, so I wasn't like close by enough that I could visit. We shared one car, which he would always say that he needed, and he would go out, so then I would be stuck at home. Um, and I think that loneliness, and kind of difficulty to cope in that loneliness. I wasn't very good at being alone at that time in my life, whereas now I love it. But I think to deal with that, I very much sought comfort in food and alcohol. So even if I wasn't going out with friends or doing anything, I would order in a huge takeaway. I would drink multiple bottles of wine, sitting in my living room watching the X Factor or whatever, because I wasn't fulfilled in so many other ways, and that was my way of making myself feel happy. But then I wouldn't feel happy. Then I would feel crap about myself. Then I would try on clothes and I would think, Jesus, what happened to you? And I'd get sick of being fat, and I crash diet. And let me tell you, crash diets, they don't work. I've done them all. I've done Weight Watchers where you've got points to play with and you can save up all your points and drink alcohol at the weekend. I've done Slimming World that demonizes foods and calls chocolate bars sins, gives them sin counts. It's not spelled like SIN, but the word is the same. And mentally does the same thing. I tried laxative teas, which one time I got a delivery of from China, and my dog ate them when they came through the letterbox. So that was fun. And I tried starvation, which in turn led to binge eating. And I think Weight Watchers kind of falls into that category as well, right? Because when you go to Weight Watchers, you've got your Marjorie Doors woman, for anyone that's familiar with Little Britain. She's like the group leader of the Slimming Club, and she's given it right, okay, like these are the amount of points you're allowed to eat this week. But if you've got a night out coming out, you just cut off a few points in the week, and then you can drink all of that in alcohol. And when you're a person that eats takeout food and drinks alcohol as your staple, and someone's telling you, well, in order to drink the alcohol, just don't eat in the week, and it's fine. You take that to the extreme. You just don't eat. You're eating those mugshot pasta pots that are only a few hundred calories to get through so that you can sink a few bottles of wine on the weekend. That's not really the message that we should be delivering. If you starve yourself all week and then binge at the weekend, you're entering a cycle of binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict. And when you binge and restrict, you're restricting because you feel guilty about the binge. And you shouldn't at any point in your life feel guilty about eating any kinds of food. Like, that's insane. Food is there, enjoy it. Whether it's healthy, whole foods, or whether it is a chocolate biscuit, or I don't know, like you've gone to a restaurant to eat out, whatever. It's there to be enjoyed. It is not something that you're supposed to punish yourself for having. But also, we don't need to have it in excess. And when you enter into these crash diets, they essentially demonize and teach you that there are foods that you cannot have. And if you do have them, you've done something wrong. And then you should feel guilty. And then you should feel shame. And that's exactly what was happening. I would do these diets, I wouldn't stick to them, they wouldn't work. Of course, they wouldn't work because they were all quick fixes, and none of them are going to work long term. They're not sustainable. And then I would feel shame. I'd be obsessing over my scale weight. I had a very poor relationship with myself. I'd weigh myself every morning, and if the scale had fluctuated ever so slightly, that would determine how I dealt with the day. And that didn't mean that if my scale had gone up, I would starve myself. That meant that it could go one of two ways. If my scale went up, I might starve myself for a few days, but then I would binge because I was starving, and you can't sustain that. Or my scale would go up, and I would think, to hell with it, I'm fat anyway, just let me eat everything. And then I would binge because what else am I going to do? I'm fat anyway, who cares? And it was this like mindset. I didn't do any exercise. I didn't even go out and get my steps in. I had no interest in trying to maintain any kind of health. My interest was solely on what did my body look like. And at that point in time, I wasn't happy that my body looked fat, but I also wasn't willing to deal with it in a structured and sustainable way. I wanted it to be overnight, and I did not gain that weight overnight, so I was never going to lose it overnight. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that I went from being this perfectly healthy kid with no food issues to an overweight, binge drinking adult with a myriad of food issues. It's kind of not okay, and kind of something that probably happens way more than it should. But there is an aha moment. There was a point that I turned it around. It's not all doom and gloom. And that aha moment was a friend's brother's wedding. And it's the same old story, right? You're going to a wedding, you get your hair done, you get your makeup done, you've got a new dress, you've got some banging shoes, and still love those shoes to this day. It's a good thing about shoes, they will always fit you. But yeah, feeling amazing, feeling like I looked $1,000,000, blowout hair is all nice and bouncy. My partner at the time decided last minute he wasn't going to attend. No good reason other than he didn't want to go. So I went alone with the rest of the couples, and had a really nice night. It was fun. My friend's brother got married, and it was a really special time. We all had a really nice night. But that wedding was the trigger for me. I don't know why. I don't know why it was this photo. I'd seen a million photos of myself. I'd been in the same shape for quite a long time. But the next day after the wedding, I saw a photograph of myself and my friend, and I did not recognize the person that was looking back at me. Shell of who I was unhealthy, I was overweight, I was unhappy, I was being poorly treated by many people around me, I was being controlled financially, And the absolute worst part of it was that I was letting it happen, because you're the person that's in control of you. And I have never been shy in coming forward. I've always been quite happy to speak my mind. I've always been quite happy to tell people when I thought they were out of order. Even in primary school, when I was being bullied by kids for being skinny, I clapped back. But for some reason, at this point, that girl looking at me in that picture wasn't doing any of that. She was accepting all of this horrible, toxic stuff that was making her feel like a completely different person. And that flipped a switch for me. Flipped a switch. Like, literally, like nothing else I'd experienced. It was like I just knew this is a turning point, and if you don't turn now, you've given up. And I wanted to change. I wanted to change forever. I didn't want a quick fix. I knew that they didn't work. I knew I'd tried it before. And I thought, okay, it was time to look at things from a different perspective. And like, I used to watch all those shows, Super Size versus Super Skinny, The Biggest Loser that was on that clip, America's Next Top Model. And it was all extreme and it was all like really harsh, but I knew deep down that this was not the way to fix it. I knew deep down that I just needed to stop eating things that I didn't eat before when I wasn't in this position. So I made a list. I noted down everything that I eat in a day. It was scary. I was eating crisps, I was eating chocolates, I was eating Chinese takeout, I was eating fish and chips. We have this thing in Scotland called a pizza crunch. Anyone that's been to Scotland knows that we fry everything. And they have this thing in chip shops called a pizza crunch. And it's essentially like a small frozen pizza that they cook, and then they dip it in batter, and then they deep fry it. It must be packed with fat and calories, and it definitely isn't good for you. There's no nutritional value in there. And I was having them for lunch during my lunch break from work with chips. So when I made the list of everything I was eating, it was quite easy to see what shouldn't have been in there on a daily basis. Now, I 100% promote a balanced diet, and I would never say eliminate any kind of food. I would never demonize any kind of food, but there are foods that you don't eat every day, and a pizza crunch is definitely one of those foods. So I made the list, I looked at it, and I took out the things that I thought were not serving me. So the sweets, the crisps, the takeouts, and the wine. I didn't give up alcohol completely. I'll be honest about that. I very much still wanted to be able to socialize. At that age, I still very much felt like I had to drink alcohol to socialize. I don't feel that way now. That comes with age. But at the time, I did still want to drink alcohol, but I changed it and I reduced it. I stopped drinking at home. I stopped drinking alone. I only drank alcohol when I was going out with people, and there was like an event happening. And I stopped drinking wine completely. I cut wine out. I actually didn't drink wine for years, because I knew that if I did drink it, I would drink more of it than was reasonable, and that it was a very calorific drink to have. So if you're drinking 3 bottles, that's eating into what you should actually be eating to nourish your body. So I didn't count my calories. I don't even to this day know what my calories were at that point, because all I had to do was take out all of the junk, and that put me into deficit without me even having to track. Now, that's not something I would do now. Now I am very much conscious of what I'm having, but I'll get into that a bit later. But at the time, all I needed to do was cut back and just change some things and be healthier. So I did lose weight very quickly, and I think that the reduction of alcohol really helped with my mindset, my motivation, my clarity. It made me think about things a bit differently. It made me feel more energized to be able to go out and actually move my body. I started walking, then I started running. That was energy that I never had before. I very much didn't even want to walk the dog before. And it would literally be like, I would take him out just to go to the bathroom and then I come back in because I couldn't be bothered. Because I didn't have energy. I was hungover, I was tired, I was drunk, like I was too busy waiting on my next takeaway to come. So I just wasn't moving. But taking away that like excessive alcohol drinking really did help me with that motivation. I ended the relationship that I was in. It obviously wasn't serving me well either, and was having impacts on my headspace. And then I thought, okay, we've lost some weight. We started moving. It's time to get some strength. It's time to get fit. It's time to actually make an effort and move in a way that kind of gets me stronger, makes me a more resilient person. And so I went circuits, group circuits. It was, let me tell you, freaking terrifying walking through that door the first time. Although I had lost a bit of weight, I'd not set foot in a gym, and I was massively intimidated by gyms. They terrified me, but it had to be done. I braved it, got through it, and I can honestly say, as much as it was a gut wrenching feeling, to walk through those doors for the first time, it was fine once I was there. And even though I had this like perception of what gyms would be like, it didn't feel that way at all. It was a small community gym that I went to. There wasn't a whole load of members, which I think made it easier. And then the impact that just had on my mental and physical health was just incredible. Like, yeah, I went in there with the mindset that I wanted to still alter my body and I still wanted to change what I looked like and I wanted to tone up. But how that then made me feel mentally when I left, how proud of myself I was, how empowered I felt, was like a drug like no other. Forget your bottles of wine. That was the ultimate feeling. And so I got a personal trainer after that. And I loved working with the personal trainer. There was like lots of functional fitness. It was also really exciting, interesting pieces of equipment that I'd never seen before. And I really enjoyed pushing myself and being pushed a little bit further than I thought I could go by her. And it was great. What I will say about the personal trainer though was it wasn't all bells and whistles and it wasn't all rosy. This personal trainer that I dealt with did give you a really good workout in the gym, but they preached about only eating whole foods a lot. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to only eat whole foods, it's obviously good for you, but their ethos was never eat anything that is processed, only ever eat whole foods. Diet Coke, you might as well be drinking toilet cleaner. It's so bad for you. It's got so many chemicals in it. And that's fine. They were not wrong. Okay. They were not wrong about that. However, it's highly unlikely that your general person in the population is going to be able to eat 100% whole foods all the time. For a start, barely even available in Scotland. I think we've got like one Whole Foods supermarket. It's also very expensive. And it's also just not how the general population live their lives. So, with this personal trainer preaching to me, you can't eat anything that is processed, or you must eat whole foods. It must have grown at some point, it must come from a whole source, but not providing me with any education on how to eat whole foods all of the time, or providing me with that little bit of wiggle room to say, like, look, we want you to eat whole foods as much as possible, but there will be occasions where you might have to have a can of Diet Coke. It's okay. They didn't provide any of that. So where that left me, a girl who was used to takeaways and alcohol, I didn't know what to eat. And I definitely wasn't eating enough protein. They never talked to me at all about protein intake. They never talked to me about fat intake to regulate my hormones or keep a healthy hormone balance. As a female, we need to make sure we're eating enough fat. So in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, what's Whole Foods? What can I eat? I swear to God, I was living on hummus and carrots. I was skinny. I was slim again, and I was getting fitter, but I was not building any muscle because I was not eating any protein. And I think the most protein I was getting was like a vegan protein shake, and I'm not vegan. I was just having a vegan protein shake because that's what they sold in the gym that I went to. So I feel like while there was a lot of positives to working with that personal trainer, there was a lot of lack of information that would have been really helpful to someone like me that was just starting out, and it's something that I feel is missing with a lot of health professionals in the fitness industry. So yeah, then I moved over to the Middle East. I learned about nutrition myself because that was the only way I was going to learn about it. And I started to understand macros and calories and getting the adequate amount of protein in. I tried a bunch of different fitness classes, different to the one that I'd done in the UK. I'd done some by Mills, didn't really love that. Some classes are good, some are not. And then I'd done some CrossFit. I loved CrossFit. I loved the community element of it. I loved the little competitive element. And so I started doing like their workouts of the day, 6 days a week. Absolutely loved it. It was fit as a fiddle. My cardio was fantastic. I done a Tough Mudder, and let me tell you, if you had told me at 25, Stacey, one day you will do a Tough Mudder obstacle course, I'd have laughed in your face and asked you to pass me a kebab, and maybe a glass of wine as well. But what an awesome experience, and I'm actually doing Tough Mudder again next year because it was so much fun. But while I was kind of going through this little journey, just in a kind of random CrossFit competition, we done some deadlifts and we had to do like a 1 rep max, which is not something you usually do in CrossFit. And so you were just to lift the bar for a deadlift for like the 1 rep, heaviest possible weight you could do. And I was astounded to learn that I could lift this much weight. And that made me twig. And I'm like, I want to do more of this. I want to lift heavy. I want to know how heavy I can lift. I want to learn to lift more than this I've lifted now. And that, I guess, to say the rest is history. I found my one true love, which was bodybuilding. I genuinely found that joy of going into the gym and training, and not training because I hate how I look and I want to change it. I want to tone up or I want to lose body fat. Training because my body is a machine and the things that it is capable of are incredible when I take my mind out of the equation. And for me now, still on my worst days, my days that I'm in my worst mood, my gloomiest days, I know that if I get in the gym and lift heavy weights, heavy ass weights, I will feel like the strong woman I am. I'll feel a million times better. I'll come out of the gym in a better mood. Even if I swear a lot during that session, I'm still going to come out in a better mood. And I now have that complete understanding that the number on the scale, it doesn't matter. Like, if I want to be able to lift heavier weights, then I need to have more muscle. To have more muscle, I might need to weigh a little bit more. I think I seen a really nice quote on someone else's social media that said, you need to be aware that your ideal body probably weighs more than you think it does. And I think that is perfect, and that it does. That number on the scale does not define your progress. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define your progress. It doesn't define how far you've come. And so many women put so much emphasis on that number. I remember when I was in the UAE, I had a colleague before I left my corporate job to go into coaching full time. I had a colleague, and she told me one day that when she gets on the scale in the morning and the number doesn't say what she wants it to say, it ruins her day. and she's in a bad mood for the rest of the day. I'm like, I get it, because I've been there and I have felt that way. But it just still amazes me that women, she's an intelligent woman, she has a good job, she has a really purposeful job, she has a lovely family, and her happiness is determined by what this number on the scale says. When in actual fact, this number isn't just body fat. When you get on the scale in the morning, it isn't just your body fat that gets on the scale. It's your bones, your muscles, your organs, water, waste that you haven't got rid of yet. It's everything. It's not just Stacey's body fat's jumped on the scale and Jesus, look at what it says. It's your whole body, it's your whole entire body. And that number can then fluctuate for so many reasons because of that. So stress levels, if your cortisol levels are up, you're retaining water, you're stressed, boom, scales up. Your menstrual cycle, who gets bloated before they get their period? Pretty much everyone. If you don't, you're incredibly lucky. But we get bloated. Our uterus has extra fluid in it that it gets rid of. Number on the scale goes up. You've had a heavy workout the day before, your muscles fill with blood and water to aid recovery, boom, scale goes up. For sleep. Now I've trialed this. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. I have gotten up in the morning and weighed myself, taken the reading, gone back to bed for an hour, got up and weighed myself again, and the scale has come down. This proves that your sleep can impact the scale weight. If you don't sleep enough, if you didn't get your full 7 hours, that number can go up. Now, okay, the drop might only be 200 to 500 grams. But my point is, you didn't lose 200 to 500 grams sleeping in your bed for an hour. It's not that. You don't lose random amounts of fat doing nothing. You don't gain random amounts of fat overnight doing nothing. That number on the scale is not always fat going up. Sometimes that number is fluid. It could be that you drank too much liquid the day before. It could be that you had your dinner a lot later than you usually have it the day before. It could be that you've just not been to the toilet that day. But yet so many women get up, we get on there and we go, oh my God, it's gone up 2 pounds. My day is ruined. That 2 pounds could just be some water. So as much as the media want us to believe that scale and dress size is all that matters, it really isn't. You don't walk about with your scale weight or your dress size slapped across your forehead. No one knows what that is except from you. So we need to be encouraging women not to focus so much on the scale, not to focus so much on the dress size, but actually focus on your non-scale victories. Like, what about she got fitter so that she can go out in the garden and play with her kids and she doesn't get out of breath? She can pick her kids up without being in pain. What about she's progressed the lifts in the gym? What about she's been eating healthier consistently and she's managed to lower her cholesterol? She's increased her running pace. She's improved mobility, just making general life and doing things a whole lot easier. Like, these are the things that we should be encouraging women to celebrate. These are the things that we should be using to measure our progress, not what a number on a device that isn't always accurate says. And that's really what I've tried to do with Stay Fit Coaching. I have tried to make an enjoyable experience where women feel comfortable and they feel that they can really enter this kind of phase of their life where they're making positive, healthy changes and building healthier habits to be the best possible version of themselves. As I said before, going into a gym as someone who's overweight, unfit, and unhealthy, who had not been in a gym before, getting a personal trainer, going into a gym is a terrifying experience. It's very intimidating. And when it came to doing that for me, I was very reluctant to work with someone who I perceived, because I don't know their backstory and you don't know people's backstories, but I perceived this person, all these personal trainers, to have always been in shape, to not understand how it feels to be overweight, how to not understand how it feels to be unfit. And I think I let my previous experiences of being judged by people because of the way I look affect how I felt about that. And it therefore caused me so much anxiety. So I had this like feeling of fear that these people are so in shape and have always been in shape and they'll be disgusted by how unfit I am, or how much extra body fat I still have. And that really made it more challenging. And part of me wonders, if I didn't have those preconceived ideas, if I would perhaps have gone ahead with some sort of fitness program earlier in life. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure that there was an environment for women where that fear was kind of alleviated in a nice way. And I've had those trainers as well that preached only whole foods, no Diet Coke, but didn't provide any nutritional education. I've had a trainer that told me you'll never have a flat stomach, so you might as well just accept that. Um, who just put me through a workout, not explain to me why we were doing certain exercises, never gave me any nutritional advice or taught me anything. And I just kind of feel like, for people that are coming into this new realm, this kind of unfamiliar territory, where they're scared and they're anxious and they fear failure as well, that there needs to be an all-round and overall support. So I really wanted to create a space for women that was comfortable, where they felt supported, where they felt guided, but also where they felt like they were receiving some sort of education, that they were completely, excuse me, but they were completely empowered to become like the healthiest version of themselves, for themselves, not for anyone else, not because Kim Kardashian told you to do it in a magazine, not because closer magazines promoting the best cellulite destroying plan, just because you want to be healthier for you. And if you want to be like slimmer, you want to lose body fat for you, you want to build muscle for you, that's absolutely fine. But I just wanted there to be a space where women would really have all of that information to help them move forward, and where they were not alone. You're not doing it alone. This doesn't have to be a solo mission. You've got the support. So yeah, I do like tailored training plans and tailored nutrition plans, but I also provide education. I'll tell people why we're training the way we're training, why we're training these different body parts. You know, like so many women are like, I want to be toned, but I don't want to get too big. I don't want to have masses of muscle. I don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm there to say, no, that's not going to happen. It's impossible for women to just accidentally gain that much muscle mass. You would either have to be taking some sort of steroid, or really, really, really training very hard for a very long period of time. It's not going to happen by accident. So I'm there to give that advice. I'm there to kind of bash those kind of myths that women come in frightened to deal with. I'll teach them how to best nourish their bodies, in a way that means they can still live their lives, they can still enjoy things. Yes, we eat stuff that is good and whole and nutritious, but there's space to have a chocolate biscuit with your tea if you want one. There's space to go out for a meal with your partner if it's your anniversary. You can still have alcohol if you wish, just not to the extent that I was having it. So I like to kind of teach like the whole spectrum in terms of nutrition, in terms of training, how to build your program, so that when you don't have a program done for you, you know what you're doing going forward. How to build healthy habits, and just like constantly provide information, understanding your hormones, how to have a healthier mindset, ways to switch off, ways to de-stress. Like, ultimately just being their biggest cheerleader, because it is a minefield. There's a lot of flawed information out there. There's a lot of men on the internet saying, oh, it's just a calorie deficit. That's all you need to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. When that's not true. That's not how women work. That's not how physiology works. There's many reasons why you might not be losing weight when you are in a calorie deficit. You could have a thyroid issue. You could have polycystic ovaries. You could have been in a deficit for far too long, and your body needs a freaking break. So there's a number of reasons why someone might not lose weight, and I think that the male perception of it and the portrayal of it on social media is really unhelpful, where it's, oh, it's just calorie deficit, and if you can't manage that, then you're doing it wrong, because that is not as straightforward as it is. So yeah, with my coaching business, I really hope that I am providing that all-round support for women, um, making them feel that they can really achieve anything that they want to put their minds to, and they can really be the healthiest and fittest version of themselves, regardless of what age they are, regardless of what their background is, and regardless of what their circumstances are. So I really hope that that's where we're going with it. And if you are interested in any of my coaching, then my website and Instagram has been linked. Thank you very much for your time.
No.
Oh, I can't hear you, Lisa.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. The other thing I wanted to point out is menopause.
Oh,
Menopause.
yeah.
So if you're not losing weight, make sure you have your hormones checked, because your hormones are influencing that as well. So you could be
I think
eating
this is,
right. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's one of the biggest things with and just that last part that I was saying with male fitness people on the internet. They
Yeah.
don't understand female hormone function,
No.
and it does play a massive part. Menopause is something that a large portion of my clients are currently going through, and not everyone can go on hormone replacement, right?
Right.
So
Right.
then that's something that you need to work around.
Yep. Yep. So, um, I know I went into perimenopause at like 45 or something like that, not knowing what the heck was happening. I thought I was going crazy. I started gaining weight little by little. I wasn't doing anything different. Then I stopped doing all these things that I thought might be influencing that, and not realizing that I was going into menopause. I really thought I was losing my mind. Um, Finally went to go see a doctor, and they're like, "Oh, no, you're in menopause." And then, you know, your body changes, just like your body
It
changes
does change.
when you're young, and, as you go through puberty, and as you have babies, and as you age, and your body changes. And I'll tell you, every single time I see one of those male fitness guys pop into my feed and go, "If you're a woman and you're da 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 da, da da da," I was like, But you're not a woman. So what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like, you can
yeah,
study all you want, but you're not a woman. So how am I gonna come to you and say, "This is what's happening with me"? How are you gonna even relate to that? So, I
yeah.
love that you're doing what you're doing, and that you've got this amazing experience. And boy, when I heard you talking about when you're young and going out and drinking, and then going and eating really bad food, and then laying around because 'cause you're hungover, and then going out drinking, like, oh my god, I remember those days of just being young and crazy and wild and getting fat from it, So,
I swear it would kill me now. I couldn't drink like that now.
well, and just so unhealthy, good thing. I mean, I
Yes.
couldn't imagine trying to do that now. I feel sometimes I just feel terrible and I haven't even done anything wrong. I've been eating right and everything else. Just one of those days. But that's what happens as you age. And so it's more important, I think, as you age or even if if you're young, make sure you make some good, healthy choices and start some healthy habits that you can continue as you get older. But if you are older and you don't have such healthy habits, you can work with Stacy and she can help you sort of establish those healthy habits and feel better. I mean, and that's what this whole health expo is all about. It's not about, you know, n- jumping into something and making those resolutions. It's about making those small changes to feel better. That's all we want. We all want to feel better, right? And if part of it's losing some extra weight that you have, just so that you can have better mobility and you can have th- clearer thinking and pick up your grandkids and take a walk around the block or whatever it is, just to feel better. And if that's the only goal you have, that's perfect right there. That's perfect. I just want to feel better. So Stacy can help you with that at stacefitcoaching.com or at Instagram at stacefit. So you can find her also in the She Is Me on the She Is Me website, and all of her information is there. You can reach out to her. Thank you so much, Stacy.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. It's been an absolute privilege.
Thanks for staying up late.
It's past my bedtime now, yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
You're
evening.
welcome. All right,
Bye.
bye-bye. All right, everyone. We are wrapping up today, and I wanted to let you know that we will be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Pacific. That is Joanne Docherty. She's coming to us from Scotland. So we're going to be here at 7 a.m. for her talk, and it's going to be a full day tomorrow. Let me see. I closed down the page. I think we're going till 4 o'clock tomorrow. Something's going to be full day. So you can join us, tune in anytime between 7 and 4, and we will see you tomorrow.